Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another exciting watch party. It's me, Captain Logan, and joining me tonight, as usual, is Austin, the Day Ghost. And
I
tonight,
don't even have a hat to tip this time.
yeah, what happened to your hat?
I don't know.
This time, Austin chose our commentary subject, and it won the poll. It actually won the poll last week, but I was not able to get the movie watched ahead of time. I actually started it, or I watched it, but I was doing other things and stuff, and I wasn't able to pay close enough attention. So I was like, I'm not prepared enough to do this. I don't know this movie very well. So last week we did a blind mini marathon on the Super Friends, which was fun, and now we're finally getting this done. This is going to be our last commentary before the year is out. Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to everybody. I will probably come back and do a couple more streams next week, and maybe I'll have DJ Austin, somebody on something next week, just kind of an impromptu fun thing, but I mean, this will be fun too, I'm sure, but we're kind of done with regular content this week. I'm ostensibly taking off after today, so I hope everybody has had a wonderful year, and happy Christmas and New Year and everything to you. We're gonna go ahead now and get our stuff set up and get into Pirates of the Caribbean. This is Dead Man's Chest. This is the second movie. We did the first one, Austin, what, a couple months ago now?
Yeah, I think back in September.
Which was a lot of fun. That's a movie I hadn't seen in a really long time, and I always enjoyed it, but didn't go back to it a lot. This isn't like my genre; it's not my favorite thing. And
Yeah, of course.
I had seen it maybe 3 or 4 times, and then I really got in the mood to do this after we watched that. And of course, time got away from us, and I got a little bit out of that mood. So it's taken me a little bit to warm back up to this stuff, getting back into this. This was fun. I had only seen this maybe twice.
Oh, okay. I was really interested to see how you would fall on 2 and 3 specifically.
Yeah.
Because I feel like everyone can agree that 1 is like really good, or like at least good.
Yeah. And then and then the sequels get polarizing.
And then the sequels get polarizing immediately.
Or could we say 2 and 3 are polarizing, and then after that they stop being polarizing, going the other direction? Yes?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks a lot for joining live if you're doing that. Thanks for watching later on as well. We sure appreciate you. As always, if you want your comments and questions and ideas to be talked about as we go through this, you can leave a super chat, and we'll guarantee that we talk about those. But leave regular comments as well, and we'll keep looking over and chat with you throughout the commentary. This is another long one. This one is 2.5 hours. There were a lot of reviewers when this movie came out, critics that lamented the length of this, which is interesting because it's only 10 minutes longer than the last one, but that tells you how people felt about the pacing of this movie versus the other one, which is one of the things I want to talk about while we watch it, because this feels infinitely longer to me than the first one did.
Yeah, for sure. One, I think...
So strap in, folks, because we're watching all of it.
There's just certain things that I think people are harsher on then than they would be now if it came out now, if that makes sense. And I think that's one of them.
Maybe so. There was a worry from some mainstream critics that this was spelling like the beginning of the end of like good narrative mainstream movies, and there might be a little bit of truth to that, but this would not be the only thing to throw shade at with that, of course, right around this period. There's lots of stuff. So when you say people probably wouldn't be as critical about it, it might be because our standards dropped some.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's certain things like the length. I don't think people would complain about now. When you have
especially
like
in a major franchise,
exactly. Yeah,
that's building on stuff that came before and has like lots of characters to juggle and stuff.
Mm-hmm. No, we started Batman with 3 hours this time.
Yeah, good call.
2.5 hours almost a standard at this point. Like a ton of stuff is 2.5 hours.
Again, especially for major franchise movies.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, because these things are kind of epics.
Yeah. Well, I feel like Nolan was a big part of making that shift with the Batman movies.
Absolutely. And the Marvel movies were trying for quite a while to keep everything as close to 2 hours as possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you get like
Age of Ultron being a big culprit of that, where it's like that needed another half an hour, and Whedon said no, 2 hours. And you're like, what are you talking about? You wrote 3 movies worth of story, like.
Yeah, it's all jumbled because nothing's really fleshed out.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. But anyway, we better go ahead and get into this because it's long. If you want to watch the movie along with us, and we encourage you to do so, but apparently only 13% of you always do that. I put out a poll recently, and about 200 people responded, and I asked, do you always watch the movie along with us? Do you never do that, or does it depend on what it is? And there were a number of people that said it depends on what it is, but only 13% always watch the thing along with us. And I knew that would be a low number. I didn't think it would be that low. So apparently the clock on the screen is just to let you know where we are in the movie, not necessarily to sync with us.
Yeah, exactly. Something like that. I don't know.
But if you do want to watch it along with us, make sure that you have your DVD, your Blu-ray, your 4K, your digital copy, however you want to watch it, or your Disney Plus, because it is streaming there. That's how I'm watching it. Austin, I don't know if you own this movie or if you're watching it on Disney Plus.
No, I still don't own any of these movies except for the 5th one. And I don't know.
Oh, yeah, you said that last time. And I don't have these either, but of course I want to buy them now. By the way, once again, my little guy Mikey, who is 4 years old, he watched this with me last week when I was trying to get through it. He watched it with me today. He loves this movie. Both times he loses his mind with the Kraken and breaking the ship in half. And
it's so cool.
He gets giddy and he was laying on the floor today, and he just gets up and starts bouncing when that happens.
Yeah,
he was so happy.
Awesome.
And we were worried he wouldn't like the sequels as well because they don't have skeletons.
Yeah, that was a big thing I said with the last one.
It was a lateral move for him going to fish people. Because he goes, oh, Dad, tentacles. And he's like, fish people.
Well, and it's probably like interesting for like a kid his age because they're a lot more like varied in design.
Yeah.
And there's a lot like crazier kind of things going down.
Yeah, it just gets nuttier and nuttier.
Mm-hmm. The CGI is still really good. Like,
I was worried about the kind of torture stuff in the cells at the beginning of it. Like just a couple minutes in, you got like a guy with his eye that gets gouged out, and I was like, oh no, I didn't remember this scene. I looked at Mikey and I was like, buddy, are you okay? Like, this is kind of scary, right? He goes, yes, and I like scary things, Dad.
You should know I like to be frightened.
Like, why don't you gouge your own eye out right in front of me, Dad? I would really enjoy that. Anyway, I'm joking. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started here. Once again, timestamp 0. Get ready to press play when I say now, and I am just about to do that. Austin, are you all rigged up and ready to go?
Yep, I'm ready to go.
Whoa. Sorry about that. See, this is why I didn't put a mic in front of my face before. All right, folks. Here we go. Everybody, please press play right now.
But yeah, so you were mentioning like the eye thing. That's a big thing that I would say if this came out now, people would be less harsh on this, because you compare this movie to like most blockbusters coming out now. Even if you don't like this is way more visually interesting than like most of what is coming out, especially from companies like Marvel and DC, like just those kind of big action franchises.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Well, I was shocked by just how well a lot of the CG holds up in this. Because
it's, like, really good.
You know, there's a thing that we tend to do, and I don't mean to make blanket statements or be hyperbolic or anything, but there's a thing that we tend to do naturally, of course, where we go, we look at a movie that came out a certain number of years ago, and we go, this movie this comes out in, what, 06?
Something
and it's
like
2022, so I mean, this movie is like over 15 years old, right? And we go, wow, look how long ago that movie came out. I can't believe how well the CG holds up. And I respond with, yeah, the technology in some ways has gotten better, of course, but I see a lot of movies now that don't look as good as this for various reasons. We're not trying as hard to integrate the visual effects as well.
There's also a lot more, like everything's a digital effect. Harder.
Yeah, like there's enough stuff in this that is practical, that it's integration as opposed to just you have live action scenes and then you have 3D animated scenes that we pretend are live action, right? And I feel
Yeah,
like
exactly.
movies have tried to condition us to get used to looking at fakeness, and our brains say, well, that's real because it's in a live action movie. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of problems right now with not giving visual effects people enough time to do their jobs. And there's been, a lot of
Absolutely.
stuff that's come out lately about how hard visual effects artists are being worked, and that it's like sweatshops and all of that. And that contributes to it as well. And I mean, I don't know how bad it was at this point as far as that goes. But I just think it's kind of interesting. Like, I don't think you can look at it the same way as you would, if you're in 2006 and you look back at like model work from 20 or 30 years earlier, and you go, "Oh, this movie came out so," or let's compare, apples and apples. You look back at CG in the early mid 90s compared to this. If you go 10 years ago, it's amazing this looks as good as it. Well, yes, it would be then. Now, not. It's different.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, I mean, I stand by that. I think Davy Jones is like one of the better CGI, like fully CGI villains we've ever gotten. Like, he looks really impressive, and we're not afraid to get like in on his face, and there's a lot of like intricate detail to him.
Yeah. And you can tell it's a visual effect, and it's not
Yeah.
perfect because it can't be, but you're also looking at a thing that's the only way you could possibly do it. So it's impressive, just how good it looks. His design, I don't even want to say design because obviously it's very different, but just the way that's animated reminds me a lot of Voldemort, but looks better than Voldemort.
Oh yeah, for sure. No, and you can like see Bill Nye's performance through it. Like, I don't think it's holding him back in any way.
Yeah. I saw in a screenshot just while I was looking for an image earlier for the thumbnail. That, like, I didn't do a lot of background research for this, but I just happened to see this image where somebody had taken like his like a previs. Or like not quite finished effect and the complete effect, and then at the bottom was just like his face with dots on it.
Yeah.
And like in the scene, and I gotta look at the special features on this at some point because it didn't occur to me that he's wearing no makeup, but like of course, when you look at it, of course he wouldn't have anything on his face. But yeah. I wasn't imagining him acting with nothing.
Yeah. No, especially the third one. Like, I watched special features for these movies a lot as a kid, and it's really impressive. Like, all three of these movies would be a giant pain in the ass to make.
I'm sorry,
but...
Gibbs is having his like old school pirate moment here, and I just for a second I gotta stop everything and just say, I got mine tonight too, folks.
Yes.
Yeah, yo ho ho and a bottle of Malibu coconut rum. Yes, indeed, folks.
Also claps for knowing Gibbs's name, Cap. We're making progress.
I'm working on it, man. I'm sure I'll mess up most everything else, but I remembered his name. Well, he gets more screen time. I like him a lot in this movie.
I like Gibbs a lot. One of my big things with 4 is that it's all about Jack, and Gibbs is like barely in it. Like, he's in it, and I'm like, if you're gonna do a Jack movie, like, make the two of them the focus, because he's like his go-to guy. But
I am, by the way, drinking this straight out of the bottle. I'm not doing shots with this. I'm trying to be authentic to the pirates. They just do it like this, so that's what I'm doing. Because I've been making Ninja Turtle shots with this and Midori, and I thought about doing some of those tonight, but I was like, no, we gotta do it like they. So I never tried this straight like that. I've always put it with Midori and pineapple juice to make Ninja Turtle shots, which are wonderful, by the way, and I recommend them if you happen to like coconut and pineapple. And I know you don't, so you won't have that.
I like coconut,
awesome, but you don't like pineapple.
Not pineapple.
But which is interesting. I don't know if I've ever known anybody that likes coconut and pineapple. But anyway, I wasn't sure if I would like this straight like that because I can't drink like vodka shots. This is delicious by itself, shockingly. So I'm watching.
No.
Sorry.
No. I was just gonna say because with it being flavored, it's probably a lot easier.
Yeah.
But sorry, what were you about to say?
Yeah, I didn't mean to just jump right into another topic, but
No,
I
it's
was
okay.
responding to the things that are happening on screen.
Yeah,
We're watching this
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 is such a good introduction.
it's awesome. Yeah, we're watching this afternoon, and yeah, and then it occurs to me that there's some kind of nice like reverse foreshadowing and symbolism with it too. Like he comes out of a casket, he's gonna die at the end. That's pretty good.
No, that's like Jack's entire thing in this movie is that
He's
there's just,
escaping
like,
death. He's escaping death.
there's like constant just like death imagery. There's like a whole thing that we're about to get to with cannibals where he like goes off and it feels like a disparate subplot that isn't about anything, but like thematically it's important
That's true. Retroactively, yeah.
because it's all about they're gonna eat Jack. He's gonna get eaten at the end of the movie.
I didn't even think of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Even just stuff like at the end when they're doing like the 3-person fight, when Jack walks away, there's like a little joke where he trips into a grave.
Yeah.
There's so much just like foreshadowing towards
And
that.
even
It's
though he's
really
going to get
cool.
resurrected after this, you're maybe able to again retroactively appreciate just how lucky he gets constantly in situations by the way it all ends at the end, where he finally gets into a situation he cannot escape. Like he's almost got the Captain Kirk thing, right? Like the doesn't believe in the no-win scenario thing, where like he always gets out of situations. But the difference between him and Kirk is Kirk usually has some kind of clever way to get himself out of a situation, and he does that too maybe half the time. The other half, it's like I'm falling down a ravine on a stick, and then the ravine is like closed in enough that the stick gets stuck in it, so I'm not dead, and
that
those
part's
things.
so comic booky and silly, and I should be against it, like on principle that he falls.
See,
like
I don't think those
300
things.
feet, but it doesn't bother me.
Yeah, so Gore Verbinski, I was irritated by the sheer amount of that stuff in Lone Ranger, but it works in these. I don't know why I'm okay with them here. It's the same director doing the same stuff with the same actor.
Well, and I think part of it too, Cap, is that we're slowly moving, like pushing that more and more with these. And Lone Ranger, it's pushing more and more off of the last Pirates movie that he did. So it like already starts like way farther.
Yeah, it's like
these
Pirates 4, but now he's a crazy Native American man. And
Exactly.
he's running around with a sidekick whose name is in the title. And I like that movie more than I ever did after doing the rewind on it, and you can of course go listen to that podcast, and you'll hear me talk real in depth about that. The big thing that this particular movie and that have in common is that they're both 2.5 hours. They both feel kind of bloated in my mind and like too long. It feels like there's 45 minutes you could cut out someplace. But when you start thinking about them, at least idea-wise, and maybe character-wise, but especially thematically, they're, on paper, written a lot more cohesive and tight than they feel. This feels like an accordion. Like, it feels like we really pulled it apart, but we could have been watching the whole thing with the bellows a little bit closer in, right? The first movie doesn't have that. It feels tight all the way through, even though, in my mind, it doesn't feel like there's a lot of, like, extra pieces. This, as I'm watching it, it feels like there's a lot of extra pieces. But you and I, we're 10 minutes in, we start talking about stuff, and I'm like, oh, you're right. At least thematically, it makes sense that all this stuff is here.
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel that way as well as the first movie does.
No, that is absolutely fair. And with the cannibal thing, for example, too, with fantasy, one of the things I've always liked is that like mythological thing where you have a big overarching story, but then you kind of like drop off and you have like this little side adventure, and then then you go here, you have like a little side adventure, and it falls under that, but it's like maybe a little tighter in the ideas. But I can also understand why you would sit there and be like, okay, why are we stuck here for like 20 minutes? Can we get back to the main story?
Yeah. I do appreciate the way this movie builds on the events of the last one.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Like, we didn't really have to like fully tie it into the ending of the first one, but like we are immediately, and it's like way more cynical than like the happy ending of the first one. And
Oh, hey, look,
this,
Austin, they're putting together Hill Valley. They're
oh
building the
yeah,
clock tower.
they got to save it. That's in the third one.
They
have
should
to save
take a
it.
picture around it while ZZ Top is playing in the background.
I mean, I'm sure you'd get super excited if Doc Brown just walked in.
Oh, just all of a sudden? Yeah. Well, that's the
Yeah.
nice thing about Back to the Future is you could mash that up with pretty much anything. It's time travel.
Remember when there was an ocean in the middle of Hill Valley?
Hey, I'm going to go ahead and read the couple of super chats we have in here by Robert
Yeah, go
Wild.
for it.
Thanks, Robert. He says, Merry Christmas. Which actors should I kidnap and ship to you guys as your gift? Kevin Bacon has already been taken. What actor would you take, Austin?
Kurt Russell.
Kurt Russell?
Yeah.
I figured you'd go for somebody in this movie.
Oh, I can go for somebody in this, but at the same time, it's like I'm gonna go safe and say either Jeffrey Rush or Bill Nighy, I guess. Then.
I already had that crazy dream where Johnny Depp came to my house and just told me his whole life story and explained everything that happened at the trial to me. And then when I woke up in the morning, he was just gone. So I feel like I've already experienced this with Johnny Depp. So he kidnapped himself and came to my house. I don't know.
What if he was kidnapped and then when you opened him up, he was like, "Oh hey, Cap, it's good to see you again."
Since I just reviewed Black Panther, I'm going to go with one of my favorite actors who was in that movie and say kidnap Sterling K. Brown.
We could go for another MCU actor that's also here with Skarsgård. He's just completely wasted in the MCU.
That's true. Yeah, I was kind of surprised. Do you have this sometimes where you'll see an actor in like a more recent franchise over and over again, and then you'll go back to something from 15, 20 years earlier, and you'll go, oh, I guess I knew that actor, but I didn't realize I knew that actor. Like, I have that a lot, and I had that with this where I was like, oh, yeah, it's the guy from the Thor movies. This is the scientist guy.
Yeah. Well, and since I know these really well, it's been really cool because it's the reverse where I go like, oh, hey, like this.
You probably
person's
went to
in
Thor
movies.
and noticed that, yeah.
Another big one is Naomi Harris, who is the Jamaican woman that they talk to. She's Moneypenny in the Daniel Craig Bond movies.
Is that who that is?
Yeah, and she's Shriek in Venom 2. Again, wasted there.
Oh,
but,
that's unfortunate. And that's good. That's okay casting, I guess, because she's a good
I
actress.
think that is
but
good casting, but yeah, it's that movie.
do you know how disappointed I was? I mean, with everything with that, and not just disappointed, like ticked off, because I'm a big Carnage guy, but like I really like Shriek in Maximum Carnage in particular, and I've always wanted to see that relationship on screen, and now it'll probably never happen again.
Yeah.
Well, I guess you can never say never.
That's true. I mean, we thought DC was like done, so you never know.
Yeah, we figured we'd be well into like my children's adulthoods, and they're having their own children before we got a good, reboot of the DC universe.
Yeah, exactly.
DC Cinematic, DC EU, whatever we're calling that now. I gotta say, I don't know that I've seen him, or I don't remember seeing him in you said Skarsgård. What is his first name? I can't remember.
Oh God, is he Stellan Skarsgård? I think.
No, because that rings a bell.
Well, because there's a few Skarsgårds. I can never remember which one's which. It's not Bill Skarsgård. That's Pennywise.
Oh, it is Stellan Skarsgård. You're
Okay.
right. You're right. But yeah, Bootstrap Bill here. I was distracted the whole movie when I finally realized who that. Or not finally. I picked it up after a couple scenes. But when I realized who that was, I just like kept flashing to his, much more kind of, straightforward, even keel performance in Thor.
You were staring at him, and then your mind wandered, and you could just see him running around naked in Thor 2.
No, I was just thinking like, oh wait, this guy's a character actor? I never thought of him as a character actor.
Yeah, he's just one of those actors that shows up in a ton of stuff, and can be really cool if you give him something to do.
This rum is delicious. Let me read the other super chat real quick.
Yeah, go
Oh,
for it.
I'm sorry. We've got. Oh, you know what? I thought they were both from the same person, but they're not. The other one is from Jar Jar Ed. $5 super chat. Thank you, sir. Oh, look at that. The ending of the first movie has consequences. Yeah. People say Will and Elizabeth didn't need to return, and that criticism baffles me. I think they do plenty, particularly with her character in this. And it's kind of gutsy just how ruthless they make her by the end of this. Like, just
Yeah.
what she's willing to do that seems necessary to her, and the way she kind of, strings Jack Sparrow along to ultimately make sure he dies for the greater good. And yeah, like.
Yeah. Well, and they have that great scene
How
where they're
much?
both...
I know I'm way ahead of us. How much
Yeah.
of a gut punch is it at the end when she says, "I'm not sorry," and then you can tell in the next scene, like, she is. But
Yeah.
wow, that's a line, man.
Well, and this was like disturbing to me as a kid. Like watching the ending of this movie, it's like seeing your dad get shot. Like it's like, oh man.
And of course, when you're a kid, you can be naive enough to think it's gonna stick and to not necessarily realize that what you're looking at is very clearly a cliffhanger that they're already. I mean, it's more
They're
Wrath
not
of Khan than
hiding.
Wrath of Khan, right? Like, it's even more we're gonna go get him in the next movie and resurrect him than leaving Spock's body on the Genesis planet.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. No, they're like pretty upfront, like really quickly, just to be like, no, he's gonna come back. Don't worry about it.
Now, did
But
they make these together or back to
yes,
back? Because
um,
they already have very clearly the framework of the next movie figured out. I remember going to the theater and already knowing the title of the next movie and her saying it at the end and going, "Oh, she just said the name of the next movie at the very end of the film." Which is like, "At World's End," and you're like, "Yeah." She might as well have said "At World's End," registered trademark.
yeah, they shot them back to back because up until recently, I've always said 2 and 3 of the series are two of the weirdest, or like that's the weirdest, like two-parter shot back to back because we retcon things about this movie in the third one, and I don't know why if they were made together.
That's weird.
But I can't say that anymore because now that goes to Halloween Kills and Ends, which is even weirder.
So yeah, that's even more baffling. I love the choice to have that ship get brought down like that with no explanation, and it's a good amount of time into the movie before you have, like, it's just real mysterious. It's like, what is this crazy impossible thing that just happened? I mean, we're in a mythological world. We've got undead people and stuff. So whatever that is not going to be outside of the realm of possibility for this world, but we don't even have a hint of it yet. So when we get, I mean, it's probably another half hour, 45 minutes into the movie before, am I right, before we even start talking about the Kraken as a possible
stuff.
thing, or we don't even know if it's real and if Davy Jones can really conjure it?
No, because that's after the cannibal thing that we find out about the Kraken. This movie, it's like spoon feeding you bits where it's like, oh man, like what's happening here? What's happening? Okay, here's a little bit more, and a little bit more, and a little bit more until you build to the climax.
And the coolest thing with the Kraken is that the first Kraken scene is big enough to be a climax for some other movie. Like, you don't
It's
even necessarily expect to see it again, right? Like, just the tentacles are enough. You don't actually need to see the face or anything. And then you get to the real climax, and you're like, oh man, strap in. Kraken round 2, you guys. Like, you would almost expect that in a sequel. You know, where it's like we did the Kraken's tentacles, and then you gotta wait, and then in the next movie we're gonna show you all of it. But it's like, nah, man, they've got even like crazier, bigger things they think to do in the third one. Now, I don't remember a lot of what happens in that, except I remember it being baffling and thinking it was just crazy town.
All I'll say is I really hope you don't
Tunes.
expect to see more Kraken in the next movie.
No, I'm not saying that
I know.
I'm not saying that I do. I know the Kraken's not in the next movie, right?
Yeah, they kill it off between movies. That's like one of those big, like, why would you do that?
Okay,
things.
that's weird. I didn't remember that.
Yeah. No, you see the Kraken in the third movie, but it's like beached and like they find its body.
My son Freddie, who's 8 now, pays real close attention to movies now and is real good at picking up on story points and stuff. Because we finished the movie and he looks at me and I was like, "So what did you think of the movie, Freddie?" He goes, "I mean, I liked it." Again, getting ahead of ourselves. He goes, "I liked it," but he goes, "Didn't Barbosa die in the last movie?" Barbosa's coming down the staircase and Freddie goes, "Wait, it can't be who I think it's gonna be, right?" And then he shows up. He's like, "How?"
Wait for the next one.
Yeah, that's what I told him.
I get you.
Previously on Lost.
That's the villain of Pirate 6, is the smoke monster.
Well, this just reminds me of the pirate ship that we find on the island in Lost, called the Black Rock, which is from the same time period.
Oh, okay.
Or around the same time period, and they get dynamite out of it. That, for anybody that knows Lost, famously blows up Professor Arnst.
So now we're just in Pirates of the Caribbean 28 Days Later.
That's hilarious. You could do a whole zombie movie in this universe with no problem.
You absolutely could.
No worries.
Well,
I'd love it.
That's like an interesting thing that 4 starts but doesn't really do enough with, is that the main villain has like voodoo zombies, but they don't do like anything with that.
Dagon Spear says Skarsgård is among my favorite parts of Andor. Have you seen it yet, Cap? I keep meaning to watch that. It's on my list. I haven't gotten to it yet. I need to. I didn't know he was in that. Disney's just going to their pool of actors, apparently, for stuff.
Well, and, I saw a poster the other day for that, and Andy Serkis is in it, and I was like, what?
How have I not heard that?
Yeah, that's what I said.
That's crazy.
I guess they felt bad for, like, wasting his character in both Star Wars and Marvel, like, months apart.
So, you gotta give the studio credit in 06, and we talked about this some with the first movie too, just like how like violent and dark it's allowed to go in places while still finding that really good balance for family-friendly movie. I think this pushes it as far to the limit as humanly possible with all the cannibal stuff. It's kind of impressive that Disney let Gore Verbinski go this far and do, like, Robert Wilde mentioned it earlier as his favorite line in the movie. When we get to the bit where Gibbs says the cages were made after we arrived, I'm like,
that's horrifying.
Yeah, that bothered me. I didn't remember that line. I was like, ugh.
No, and then 3 has, I think, one of the most horrifying deaths I've ever seen in a movie and in a PG-13 movie. Like,
yeah, it just doesn't feel like there's any censorship with this movie. It doesn't feel
Not
like
at all.
there's anything holding it back. Like, oh no, the kids are gonna be freaked out. Like, and what's weird is it still feels like a Disney movie in its way. I guess it's just
Absolutely.
and I don't want to go back and repeat myself too much from our last commentary and talk too much of just the premise of this, but it already feels I guess part of the reason it still feels like a Disney movie is just the authenticity of it still being based on that ride. To the point where one of the last scenes of the movie looks like we're just on the ride.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, I think I said it in the last one, like, that's something that I think we're really missing in movies nowadays, especially by the same company, is that everything's so sanitized and it's missing this, like, grit and edge to it.
Yeah.
It's guys like this, Raimi, Peter Jackson, like, at this point we were really just pushing things.
And I get not wanting to alienate an audience, but you can do that
No,
without
not everything has to be
you can do that
this.
without sanitizing things. Yeah, yeah. You're not suggesting that if it doesn't have like blood or decapitation in it, you don't care because it's not interesting or realistic enough. Like you're not
Yeah.
saying that, obviously.
Yeah, but like also if you're gonna have somebody get stabbed like in the stomach in Black Widow, like you can have a little bit of blood. Like you don't have to like completely be that sanitized.
Give us the sense it was an actual wound, or make it feel like a stylized part of that universe somehow, because that never bothered me with Nolan. Like the Nolan Batman movies have almost no blood whatsoever, and it just feels like a stylistic choice. I never think I didn't know how you felt about that, but I never noticed it. And Black Widow, immediately I noticed it.
No, I agree with you. But that's because there is a level of grit to those movies as well. It's just not in that way.
Does it feel like just a rule of that universe at that point?
Yeah, well, it's something I don't even really notice. Like it's almost like when you're a kid and you watch like 90s Spider-Man and you don't realize that Spider-Man isn't allowed to punch people. Like you're with it. You know what I mean? Like I
But
watched
Marvel's not as heightened.
movie.
It's trying to act like it's more or less the real world, but there's superheroes here.
Yeah. No, one of the most embarrassing things I've seen, I think it was last year, was the Uncharted movie. There's a guy who gets slit. His throat is slit, like close up. They like move the knife across his neck. There's nothing there, and then he just grabs it, goes, "Ah," and then falls down. Not a single bit of blood.
Yeah.
And it's like, no.
Well, why even make it that gruesome then? He could have just been shot.
Yeah, and well, especially for something like Uncharted, which is going to be taking its cues from Indiana Jones, which is like this.
Which is
you
like
know,
this.
Where we push
well, I
things?
was going to say, you look at the second movie in a trilogy, and I realize that Indiana Jones is a trilogy, is a different animal, but immediately the first thing that you're going to be compared to, for especially a fantasy thing, is Star Wars, right? Is Empire.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
so you expect the second one to be where your characters get to their lowest point. This movie has that. You expect it to be where it's the darkest. This movie has that. You might expect it to be the longest. This movie has that. Although I don't know if the third movie is long.
Next one's 2 hours and 50 minutes.
Is it really? Of course it is. Okay. Well, but you get my drift. And But I guess what I was going to say is the first thing you'd think to compare it to maybe is Star Wars, but actually it's more comparable to Temple of Doom. Like the first thing I thought of with especially like the insane tribe of cannibals, and I don't even know that movie very well, but the first thing I thought of was, oh, they're riffing on Temple of Doom right now.
But it's also that thing where it's like you're kind of messing with like different culture stuff, and it's got like a level of heightenedness where like people say Temple of Doom's racist. Like I don't know, it fits that what it's doing in that world, and like
yeah.
Also, I think it paints like other cultures as bad. It's not like they're not going like, oh, Indian people are bad. Like it's just the villains are bad, certainly. But you know, and I think there's like an aspect of that to this too, where it's got that kind of serial feel. This movie, I think, overall is very comic booky.
It is. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I just feel like the difference is it's not throwing a particular like real world like tribe or people under the bus, and it's
absolutely.
And I mean, there were, there have been savage groups of people in history.
No, of course.
So to say we depicted like a tribe of savages is not to say they were all that way. Now, for the sake of representation, do you have to then also somewhere in your movie have a tribe of like benign tribal people that are not that way? I don't know. I don't think you do, because I don't
you just
think
do
that
what it's important to your story.
Yeah.
And I mean, we immediately go from this to like Jamaica. I assume it's in Jamaica where they go, where we go and meet Calypso, Teodalma. So like, if you do have that criticism, then you immediately go to like another culture that's portrayed
Let
nicely.
me say it real quick. I appreciate that these guys are reeled in a little bit and not given as much screen time as they were last movie, because I thought that some of the comic relief stuff was maybe like laid on a little bit too thick. And here, the little bit that we get of them, they're really funny.
Yeah, I was interested to see what you would think of that, because they don't really need to be in this movie, but like, I don't know, like I don't mind it.
That's why I
know if
appreciate that they're not taken over. But when they're there,
Absolutely.
the jokes they have are really good. Like the bit about his being illiterate, but like trying to read the Bible counts for something. Like that's funny.
No,
And I can't remember what it
absolutely.
is, but he's got a joke later that made me laugh out loud. So like it was worth
Yeah,
having him, I think.
no, for sure. No, and like you said, they don't take over. Like they're just kind of here and fill out the crew a little bit more.
We talked over it, and of course we'll see it again here in a little bit. But I meant to mention that the eyes over the eyelid thing was sold so hard in the trailers. Like that's
Yeah,
all you saw for promotion with this movie was the
and it's
eyes.
such a good shot.
Almost to the point. Yeah, it's weird and creepy. Almost to the point where you expected that like Jack Sparrow has this brand new look he's gonna have through the whole movie, and he doesn't. It's just this section.
Yeah, yeah, and in a section that I think a lot of people could look at and say is superfluous, even though I don't think it ultimately is.
It isn't thematically, but I don't think the movie would actually lose too much if you didn't have it. The problem is that for the sake of I mean, yeah, like the foreshadowing is really good, and when you put it with like all the other situations, like Jack is in, like I get your point about it, and it is good that we have it, but I think the biggest thing the movie would lose if you got rid of it is just some of the best spectacle is in this section.
No, that's true
So
too.
like story-wise, I did find myself kind of looking at my watch a little bit through this, where I was like, okay, when are we gonna like get our characters back together? Because I think one of the things that probably made audiences and especially critics feel the runtime of this is you're expecting the band to get back together. Anytime you do a sequel where you unite characters at the end where like they're a force now and they like each other, and then you make us wait forever the next time you see them for them to get together, it feels longer than it is.
No, and that's fair too. Another thing that I think is important about the section is so we have two
Sorry,
villains now.
I love Will's response to the cage line where he's like, "Oh, I don't even want to touch this anymore." That's
Yeah, it's like, oh.
that's really good.
Because we have two villains this time. That's another thing that makes it feel comic booky. Is you almost have like a Lex Luthor and I don't know, like a Brainiac, like or like a General Zod. Like you have like the super powered villain, and then you have the like controlling villain.
That's
And
a great point.
with Beckett, and that's a big thing here is that Jack finds the spices, and you see that even at like this seemingly like separate tribe that's like disconnected from everything, he still has his hands in this stuff where like he sees like the logo of the spice can in like almost like a shed that they have.
Yeah, and you're saying that made me think of this. So he's made the chief of this tribe because they think that he is a god in human form and they have to kill him to release the god, right? Which is in a weird way part of the foreshadowing. Because
Well, that's also part of the Calypso thing with Davy Jones too.
yeah, because I was gonna say that. Yeah, both of those things are there because you're gonna get to the end and he's gonna die, but then he's gonna get brought back to life later. But also, he keeps cheating death and elongating his life by making deals with devils.
Mhm.
And so
Well,
he
yeah.
already like maybe this tribe is picking up something on him. Like maybe the reason they think that is because there's actually a grain of truth to it.
Well, and Tia Dalma, the Jamaican woman played by Naomi Harris, is a
Stop it.
god in
That's
human
creepy. Open your
form.
eyes. Seriously. Quit it. Ah.
She is a god in human form that they sacrifice in the third movie, so that's even foreshadowing into the third one.
I didn't remember that.
Mhm.
That guy needs to go back to the high school and Karate Kid because he's just wearing that outfit.
This music in this scene is so goofy, and I love it.
It's really funny. Well, is this intentional? It feels like a Disneyland ride.
Yeah. Well, and it also just reminds me of like what he does later with uh Lone Ranger, where
Yeah,
in the climax you get the Lone Ranger theme, which is very silly, but it's also awesome.
yeah. I No, that's a good point. Retroactively, stuff like this also strikes me as very James Gunnish. And I don't know how much of a fan Gunn might be of Verbinski's work, but there's some places, especially in action and like action comedy, where I feel like those guys really align.
Yeah, I was thinking about that today because, like I said, I think this is very comic booky, and Gore Verbinski almost made a Gambit movie, and I don't
I
know,
didn't
like
know that.
I would be interested to see like him do something at DC with Gunn, because I've been saying for a long time that I would like Gore Verbinski to come back and do something.
Oh yeah, of course. Well, and he's got that precedent for a superhero with Lone Ranger, but I mean, it'd be cool to see him come in and tackle something that's got a better script.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think it's a giant shame that we never got his Gambit. I think that could have been really cool. At the very least, it would have been interesting, which is, I think, the big thing that I have to give Rubinski.
So I want to talk to you for a second about music because you've always
Yeah.
told me you're not a giant Hans Zimmer fan, but like
No, this is some of his best work.
but I adore his score here, and I think Lone Ranger is one of his best scores. Like,
Yeah,
period. It's killer.
absolutely.
And I mean, some of it is just the way he orchestrates the old Lone Ranger theme because it's amazing. Like, I've gone back to that probably 15 times now outside of the movie
It's
and
such
just
a
played
good
it.
render.
It's
Yeah,
amazing,
it's
yeah,
great.
and like it's 10 straight minutes, and it's killer. But one of the things I really respect with Zimmer, and I like Zimmer in general more than you do, but one of the things I really respect with him with this score is he is using, of course, his main motifs from the last movie.
Well,
But
the
like,
first one was done by somebody else.
oh
He
wait,
like,
was it really? I didn't realize that. I thought the
yeah,
first movie was also Zimmer.
he did some work on it, but he's not the main
Okay,
composer on
thanks
the
for
first one.
stopping me because I didn't realize
No,
that.
no, it's okay because there is a lot of great stuff that he brings to this one.
That's what I
So
was gonna say.
his work is still really good.
My point will still stand, I think, because and maybe it makes sense that he's doing this if the original, main Lone Ranger main Pirates theme, wasn't written by him because he keeps writing around it and making you wait for it. It's like an
Yeah.
hour into the movie before you full on get that, or maybe even later. But he's got a variation on it that is kind of taken over before we get there. I'd have to watch closer and listen for it. Maybe that actually has something to do with getting the whole band together. Maybe you don't get that theme until everybody's on screen together. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why he does that. But then he brings this really cool kind of dark motif in a couple places, and I'll point it out if I'm paying enough attention in the third act especially that I just love.
No, this is one of his best scores, I think. My main thing with Zimmer is just I mean, you can give this to any composer, but a lot of it's just like very similar, and I'm not as big of a fan as like his Nolan y work, where it's like that. It's not as rhythmic, and I'm not as big on that. But like this stuff, I really like. The Lone Ranger is really good. Like Zimmer's done a lot of good stuff. I don't want to just say he's
this
trash.
this is the melody here that's wending its way around the original, where like it's kind of in there, but the melody is different and it's more playful,
No, absolutely.
almost like it's the Pirates theme but drunk. It's like if maybe that's the idea, is that if you've only got a Jack Sparrow, you get that hornwork that's like put it on, put it on, put it on. Like I can't find it. It's in there, so I don't know where it is. I've been drinking too much rum.
After this is done, I'll have to send you the theme he did for 4 because I'm interested to see what you think of that, because it's the main theme, but it's like reworked a little bit, and he adds like almost like sea shanty like guitar to the middle of it.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, and I'd be interested to see what you think of that and how he changes it.
uh, when we go back to, I think especially toward the end, but sometimes when we'll cut back to Britain, he does some harpsichord stuff that I like quite a bit.
Well, and it's such a silly image, and I adore it. The giant organ room,
Yes!
it's so
And yeah,
good.
the organ music's amazing in this. And then we
Yeah.
keep using it toward the end, even after Davy Jones isn't playing on it anymore. This fruit bit, it's preposterous. And when I say Looney Tunes, I mean literally Looney Tunes. This is a
Yeah.
freaking Wile E. Coyote sketch, and I should hate it because the universe is just like coalescing to his will here in letting him survive all of this. But it's some of it is just the stunt. This stunt is freaking amazing. He
Yeah.
flips around twice and then lands on his feet.
Yeah. Well, there's so many cool moments like that. Like there's the part at the end where he like does the roll and then flip off the building where they're all fighting. And
Yes.
It's so cool. No, absolutely. Like
Well,
this
and then
should be a
when we-
step too far.
And then
but
when
it's
we
not.
get to the triple sword fight on the wheel, it's
so good.
insane. Yeah, but it goes on forever, and it like it breaks the it breaks my suspension of disbelief for any sense of realism with this. Like further than this by like 3 times. It's
Oh, okay.
like yeah, but I mean it's a lot of fun. But like at some point I'm just like, okay, I'm not buying any of this anymore. I've kind of lost it, but it's still so much fun to watch that I don't care that much. You know what I mean? But like,
Yeah,
it's
I'm
as
surprised
nutty
over
as
this, yeah.
it's nutty like the tank scene in GoldenEye, dude. Like,
Yeah. Well, and the big thing I like about Gore Verbinski's action climaxes is that they really do build on each other. Where like you have like that really good fight between Jack and Barbossa in the first one, and then we go bigger in this one with the 3-way fight, and then in the third one you have Jack and Davy Jones, and it's even bigger than that. And we
That's-
lose that when you get to 4, but
well, and that's a good. Although this is like a trilogy, and once you get to that movie, it doesn't feel like it's like continuation as much. I mean, I guess it is, but
one the end fight in 4 is like pretty awful.
oh really?
Yeah. No, I don't even think Jack has a sword in the climax of the 4th movie.
It's weird. I've only ever seen bits of that. I don't know if I've ever sat through that whole movie.
No, there's stuff I like in 4, but it's not cohesive, I don't think, as a whole.
This was the big trailer shot. Was just
Yes.
him
Yes, it
running
was.
away from an army of crazy tribal people.
Yeah. No, there's so many things that I think about this where it's like different commercials and trailers. Another big one is, do you remember when Blu-ray came out? There was like the
Sorry,
Disney
this
Blu-
moment killed me.
It's so good. Yeah, Jack Sparrow.
He just goes Captain Jack Sparrow. Like you just have to imagine whatever he would have said when the water hit. It's so good.
That's such a good reversal on the first one.
I think that's like if I had to make a top 3 or top 5 of like Johnny Depp takes in this movie, like that's in there.
Absolutely.
It's really funny.
It's amazing.
Do you find him like pretty consistent with his performance in the first movie, where he's not having trouble like getting back into the shoes again?
So I hit a point when I was younger where I went, okay, the first movie, they wrote this character, and then Johnny Depp brings this to it, and then they can never recapture it in the sequels. And then I got a little bit older and went, no, like he does feel pretty consistent in the second one. And then I went, okay, he's pretty consistent in the third one, but we're stretching it a little bit because we want to like do a little bit more. And then I feel like after Gore Verbinski leaves, it starts to feel like he's doing an impression of an impression, and it gets worse when you get to 5.
Yeah, I think he is consistent. I think there's a little bit of the problem you'd probably worry about before this movie came out, where how do you not write a little bit to the popularity of this character now?
Well, that's
And I
the
think
big thing.
it does have that a little bit. Critics knocked it for that. I think the critics that didn't like this movie went a little bit too far with that. Maybe like I don't think it's as bad about that as some people felt like it did. Sorry, another thing on that list. We're only like 2 minutes away from the last thing I put on that list. But when he says some of this is just this line is funny. Johnny Depp's line delivery is amazing when he's like, "It's even better. It's a picture of a key." It's even better than a key.
Well, I love that at the beginning where he's talking and he's like, "Oh, like, like I got this picture of a key," and they're like, "Oh, so we're gonna go after the chest?" And he's like, "No, we wouldn't be able to open it." "Oh, so we're gonna have to go after the key then?" You're just not making any sense at all now.
I guess the line delivery I'm talking about was actually in the scene you're talking about. It was earlier, but yeah, when he first
yes, that is when he
that's
says
when that
it,
is when he first brings the picture out. It's like so you have the key, even better.
I have a
picture.
Key.
So can I tell you a real quick self-indulgent story?
Of course.
When Jason, my oldest, he's 12 right now. When Jason was like 3, I think. So, they hadn't been talking for too long yet, like early 3, late 2. One day he was just being silly. He's not even speaking quite in complete sentences yet, right? And we're messing around like in the living room or something, looking up at the ceiling fan. And I was like, "Look, Jason, it's a ceiling fan." And he goes, "No, Dad, picture of a fan."
Oh, so that line's just like a thing.
That's part of the reason that line is so funny to me, is because he would just start insisting that physical objects that I would point out were only pictures of said objects. And that never got old to me. It was funny every time.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I'd be like, "It's a dog. Picture of a dog."
That's great. I guess I haven't brought this up yet, but also when I was a kid, like there was a point where I like really hated this movie.
Oh, interesting.
When I was in middle school, this was the only movie that my school owned. So any day where the teacher was like, "We're gonna watch a movie," it was always this. And I only got to watch the first 40 minutes. So I got so annoyed about having to see the first 40 minutes of this movie. That I was
as much
like,
fun as like the fruit drop is, it's not the best stuff in the movie, and it is. No. I say still the most superfluous cuttable stuff in the movie, probably.
Well, it's like I'm not getting the Kraken, like I'm not getting really any Davy Jones stuff, like.
Yeah. No, you're getting set up things. Like you get to see Will Turner meet his. You don't even get to see that. You just see the father. You don't even see him meet him yet.
Yeah, exactly. I get all the setup for the story, but not like the rest of it. None of the payoff.
I'm surprised I haven't brought this up yet either. The biggest thing that always stuck with me about this and the third movie is that they followed exactly the same formula as the Matrix trilogy. And the Matrix movies did it worse, I think. Oh, I guess mostly just
that's always the sense I got.
Because you haven't seen those, I don't think.
Yeah.
But mostly
I haven't, but
that's
always the sense I got.
I mean, you've seen the original Matrix, right? Mm-hmm. But not the sequels. I guess the big difference is I can follow what's happening in this movie, and 2 is for Matrix is really convoluted, and like bogged down, massively with philosophical mumbo jumbo and a bunch of stuff that you just can't even track. And then like I've done commentaries on those, but like don't get me started on whatever the heck the architect is talking about. It's a hilarious, wonderful speech, but I don't know what's going on entirely. But the reason that I and lots of people compare these two things is because you have a trilogy where the first movie stands on its own and you don't necessarily have to have more. Matrix much more so than these, certainly. These were ripe for sequels. Matrix, it's arguable whether we ever should have had any more of those. And then the second and third movies are basically one movie stretched into 2 movies. And again, maybe more so with Matrix than with this, but it's the same sort of thing where like we made them back to back. we released them not too far apart from each other. You get to the end and it's a giant cliffhanger. We don't know if our main character is going to live or die. In this case, he's died and he's going to come back to life. In the case of Neo, he's in a coma at the end. And there's a lot of parallels. And then it gets even crazier when you get into the third one, because one of the only things I remember about the third of these is in the first act, Jack Sparrow, exactly like Neo, is in this like blank white purgatory void. They both do it. And then you get to the last Harry Potter movie, and it does it too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was thinking about this while rewatching it. Is this one's almost like a Thanos quest? Like it's not exactly, but in terms of just we're like setting everything in place for like the third one to be a climax, while like this one's getting all of the trinkets, if you will. Like we got to get the key, we got to get the chest.
Well, that's what Reloaded does. All the way to there's a character, Austin, who's a program in the Matrix named the Keymaker. I mean,
does he have a drawing of a key?
Yeah, and he makes a key that characters are after. Well, they're after him. He's kind of the MacGuffin for at least part of it. But it's also a lot like that movie in that we ramp up the ride to the point of absurdity, where it's like it's got to be longer. I mean, that movie is a lot longer, or at least feels a lot longer, and this is only 10 minutes longer than the last one. But it's got that same thing where it's like there's more set pieces. The big action scenes that are trailer fodder go on for a real long time. There's insane stunts, crazy envelope pushing with the CG. Although everything in this looks integrated and real enough to me. The Bazillion Agent Smith fight, we weren't ready to make that yet.
Yeah, we don't have that here.
We weren't ready to make that yet. They did their best with it, and it was real cool at the time, but that doesn't hold up.
Well, and that's also probably why I think I get the sense that these are better than the Matrix sequels, which is, like you said, those are kind of bogged down in philosophy. A lot of people complain that the third one's bogged down in like internal politics of like all the characters, but like, yeah, like I don't know, like
I love it when he says sums. That's hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah, Naomi Harris is really great in this movie. She like completely disappears, so I'm not surprised that you didn't realize that's who that was.
Yeah. Well, I remember thinking like I should probably look her up because I've probably seen her and stuff, but like this is a character actress that totally disappears, and I'm sure she doesn't have either of those dreadlocks or a wig, whatever it is, in anything else she's in. Like I don't know if that's her hair or not, but
yeah, I'm not sure. Obviously, she's putting on an accent, and
yeah,
like it's really good.
No, it is. Robert Wilde says, I do think the third Pirates feels a little more separate than the third Matrix movie. It helps that there are more new characters and new locations. Sure, and like I said, I saw that movie one time in the theater when it first came out, so I don't remember enough in that. But also, I'm sure it's more fun than the third Matrix movie. Because...
Well, and it's got that Lone Ranger thing where, say what you want about the rest of the movie, the climax is like amazing.
Yeah.
Like you can't look at that and tell me it's bad.
And that's not exactly true with Revolutions. There's some real embarrassing stuff with that climax, and the big difference between them two, just on a major surface level, is you go to a Matrix movie, probably wanting a lot of it to take place like in the Matrix, because that's kind of what's interesting, and there's a big boring war with robots in the real world that's most of that movie. And when you go to the third Pirates movie, you're still dealing with, I don't know, pirates.
Yeah, we don't lose any of that stuff. I've also always had a debate about whether or not like who the better villain is between Davy Jones and Barbossa, and I can't find an answer to that. I don't know. Like I think they're both equally awesome.
I think so too, just looking at these two movies.
Yeah, and like both of their actors are so perfect in
Yeah.
those roles, and like they're so good.
Which again is really impressive, given that for one of these guys, you're looking at a visual effect the entire time.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Exactly.
Barbosa has the advantage of, I mean, he's got makeup and CG in some scenes when he looks undead, but he looks like a person most of the time.
Well, and Jeffrey Rush is like a cartoon character.
That's true. Maybe
So
maybe he's just
like
CG
more
in the first
animated.
place. Yeah.
He's more animated than Davy Jones ultimately.
Jar Jar Ed says the jar of dirt. Yeah, I love the setup for the jar of dirt.
That's one of my favorite Johnny Depp deliveries, is when she's like, well, if you don't want it, give it back, and he's like, oh.
Oh, Austin, sorry. Would you adjust your camera because you're kind of slipping
Oh,
again?
sorry. Am I good now?
You can see yourself there on the screen, can't you?
Oh, I'm shifting it so I can see. There we go.
There you go. Thanks.
Perfect. Yeah, no worries.
All the ship shifting in this is kind of fun, and if you're not paying attention, there might be places where you're like, oh wait a minute, wait, wasn't that guy on that ship? And then, oh, that's right, a thing happened, and now he's over here. Like,
Well, and that's the big thing people complain about with 3, is there's like a lot more of that stuff, and like all the characters are constantly backstabbing each other. Like there's so many just like motivation stuff happening, and
oh,
I
so
don't know,
it
like,
doesn't get as convoluted as Matrix until that movie. Okay.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. Oh, okay. We're about to get there, but this movie has my version of your "Is that what they say?" with Ian McKellen,
Is that what the say?
which is when Will says Jack Sparrow sent him to settle his debts, and Davy Jones turns and goes, "Did he now?" It's so good.
You know, I never used to be a big rum guy, but at least when you put coconut in it, I'm starting to be more with Jack Sparrow and all the pirates with that.
Oh, that's another good call.
I hope I don't have to put it together with gunpowder to launch it at a giant sea monster.
Yeah, hopefully. That's another good callback line, though. When he sees her again for the first time, and he turns to Gibbs and goes, "Hide the rum."
Oh yeah, I didn't even pick up on that. And my favorite thing on this last viewing when we did the commentary on it with that first movie was their relationship and just all the stuff with them on the island, and it hurt my feelings what she ends up having to do to him at the end of this, because I really like that relationship. Although I think Jack Sparrow is way too naive to think that there's any chance that she doesn't have an ulterior motive for making out with him.
Mm-hmm. Well, and their scene earlier is like so perfect when they're talking about how they're each gonna be like pulled to the way that like the other is. And then,
well, and maybe we're supposed to buy it because of all that, because there is some real good build-up to all of that, where she's sort of wooing him and stuff. But just the way that scene plays, I don't know. You'd think maybe he's just been drinking too much. I'm not totally sure I buy that. You know, another thing I don't buy. There's a Clark Kent thing with this movie that I'm not buying. Her on that ship and people not immediately knowing that that's a woman. No.
I mean, it is the actress that was being looked at to play Cable, so I don't know.
What are you talking about?
Look, that's the joke at the end of Deadpool, where he's like, "I don't know who we're gonna get."
Oh, Keira Knightley. Yeah, that's right.
Cable, maybe Keira Knightley.
That's really funny. No, where it really goes too far, when she's just like on the deck and has her back turned and nobody's really looking at her face. Sure.
It's when she drops down and goes, "What's that over there?"
Yeah, no. Where I lose it is, if memory serves, like either Jack or Will one doesn't know
It's
for
Jack.
a good like 30 to 45 seconds talking directly to her, and I'm like, no.
Because she yells, "I'm looking for the man I love," and Jack's like, get him out of here.
Oh yeah, and he's got this look on his face like, I mean, whatever floats your boat, right? And then,
Yeah.
oh, it's you. Yeah, there's some comic book logic there that, again, it is very comic booky. So there's a part of me that wants to buy that, but just, I don't know. The problem,
Not too far for you.
yeah, and I mean it's fine, but when that kind of thing always works better on a like 2D printed page than it does
Yeah,
with
or an
real
animation.
people looking at each. It's the Shakespeare thing, right? It's the mistaken identity thing, where you look at a lot of Shakespeare comedies on stage, and you just have to suspend your disbelief that all these people don't realize that these other people are in the disguises they're in, even though it's like painfully obvious, because there's just a conceit with those plays, and that's what this is trying to do.
Hmm. No, absolutely. Jack's been around too many fish people. He can't tell genders.
Well, you can explain so much away with Jack Sparrow with just he's been drinking too much rum. Speaking of Ryan Howe, I got myself tipsy on the verge of drunk after drinking from both pineapple and coconut drinks a few years back. Woke up without any hangovers. Well, that's lucky, because
That's good.
I don't wish that on anybody.
Yeah, you're not going to be in a Todd Phillips movie.
Yeah, I told the story maybe on the last commentary, I can't remember, but not too long ago, about when I
so.
drank too much. What was it? Peach whiskey, and woke up with the worst hangover I've ever had, and I had to go on camera that afternoon and just wing it, and oh. But anyway, yeah, so I've had like whiskey hangovers, but not from really much else. So hopefully this doesn't do too much to me. I'm not sure how much of this I've had, really.
You're not as slurred as the first one so far, but
not yet. But we still got an hour and a half left.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I'm sipping this, so like it's not full on shots, but collectively I have to have had 3 or 4 shots of this already. I would say in an hour, so I should slow down a little bit probably. But I've been having water between them and stuff. So.
Well, I remember you said with the first one, the shot glasses you had were basically doubles too.
Yes, they were way too big. God, he looks good.
He looks so good. There's some stuff with the Kraken I don't think's aged super well, but it's cool enough that I don't care. But
and ambitious enough, right?
Exactly. That's the big thing. David Jones, I think overall is just very impressive.
Well, and honestly, he looks a lot better than his minions. They're a little stock CG-esque in some shots.
Yeah. No, his henchmen, depending on the shot, like some of them are better detailed, but there's definitely moments where they're not as good. But like all the money went into him, absolutely.
Robert Wilde earlier was talking about action figures again because he had all the stuff from these movies, and he mentioned that he had the playset of the bone cages, which again, as dark as that is, it's so crazy they made playsets for children out of the bone cages. But I was just gonna say, this movie looks so toyetic to me. Like that was past my time. Of course, I didn't have those toys. I was already in college at that point when this came out. Yeah, my wife and I've been dating a couple years, but everything in this movie looks toy worthy.
Yeah, no, I had quite a few of the toys. I had like the smaller ones. The only big one I had was I think I had Will, and I had the Hammerhead guy.
Oh God, Robert, I don't think I've listened closely enough to do this. He says, $2 super chat, Davy Jones is awesome. Do your best impressions.
Well, I did the did he now earlier.
It makes me wish I knew how to play the organ and had one here, because then I would just do that.
Do it with your beard.
I'll listen closer to some lines and maybe I'll do one later. Maybe I'll do something from the card game scene, which by the way I like a lot. Or not the card game, the dice game.
The dice. Yeah.
Call me daft. I've watched that scene a couple times in the last 2 weeks. I do not fully understand how that game works.
So I was going to bring this up. So as a kid, I had no clue how that game worked.
I'm a little confused about it because they keep throwing out numbers. Like I thought it was like Yahtzee, and you roll the dice and you hold it there, and then everybody guesses what the numbers are collectively. Because there's a line, like I got that part. Because there's a line that's like you're not just guessing about your own, you're guessing about the like all of it. But then they keep throwing numbers out. That's what I'm confused about.
So how it works, so like I said, I had no idea when I was a kid, but then I got the Pirates 3 game, which is really Pirates 2 and 3, the game, like it's both of them.
It's like Path of Neo.
And you can find people to play the dice game and play Texas Hold'em with. And it like taught me how to play poker, and it taught me how to do this. So I like used to gamble constantly in this game. But how it works is like you roll the dice, you put it down, and then yeah, like you have to guess how many numbers there are. So if you have like three fives, you can be like, oh, certainly like there could be at least like six fives across the board,
Yeah.
and it's you'll be like six fives, and then the next person can either hit another number, or they can call you a liar, call you out, and then in which case everybody takes the things off. You look at the
Oh.
dice, and if you're correct, then like the person that made that call wins if there is that number or more. But if there isn't, then they're called a liar and they lose.
Okay, so that was part of the thing that confused me too, because like they don't actually look at their dice yet, do they?
Yes. So, but
Okay, because
you
I didn't
do.
understand the liar. But like why is that the term we're using? So is there actually lying involved?
Well, it's lying. The reason why like he's a liar is because he says there's like however many fives, but he has no fives in his cup. So there'd be no reason for him to think that there'd be that many fives. So like that's the way in which he's a liar.
So that's something of a bluff.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
Mhm.
it's an interesting
Yeah,
game. I've never seen that in anything else.
yeah, and they're looking, but it's like a subtle, like you kind of lift your cup up enough to see your dice, but you don't want anybody else to see anything. Um,
Okay, I'm understanding it slightly more, but I also have to say that while you were trying to explain that to me, I was a little bit distracted because I feel dumb because I didn't catch until this viewing what gave Jack the black spot on his hand, and now I get that. I didn't understand where that came from, but he did a handshake with Davy Jones, and I'm assuming that's what caused it.
yeah, because he shakes Will's dad's hand, and like that's where he gets it. And then Davy Jones like slimes it off, which sounds real gross.
It was very slimy.
No, there's some like real nasty sound work in this, like that in the bones, like when they hit the tree when they're rolling, and they crack. Like that's real nasty.
There's
This
a lot
is
of gross stuff in this movie.
absolutely. I think this scene specifically is like the basis for my comedic sensibilities, where we rock up just to find 100 people to sacrifice.
It's so funny. And
And
then
like,
where
yeah,
he's trying to negotiate with Davy Jones
yeah,
with
no,
like
and I
what
love,
counts as
yeah,
like well you've got me, so we're already down to 99. That whole thing is really funny.
no, and you got that guy that comes up and he's like, my wife took my dog, and I've been drunk for a month, and I don't care if I live or die. And they're like, join the crew. But I love that line where Jack turns to Gibbs and he's like, well, he didn't say the quality of the souls, so let's just go to Tortuga and pick up 100 people. Like, that's so dark, but that's so funny.
So I'm just asking because I'm not sure. Do you think that Norrington showing up here is too convenient?
Um, I mean, possibly. Like, it's convenient in the same way I think that like Elizabeth also gets here, and like they come here. Like, it's convenient in that way, but it doesn't really bother me.
Okay, because I had another. This just occurred to me. I had another kind of convenient question too. I don't know. The world feels a little smaller than maybe it ought to. Uh, but then
Yeah, for sure.
his being forced into piracy, I guess, makes it somewhat less convenient. Where like, well, they might run into him at one of these kinds of places
Mhm.
because of that. But another one, and maybe there's just a plot point I'm not immediately picking up on, Austin, because I don't know this movie very well.
Yeah.
The so you have the bad guy who runs the company who's after
Beckett.
Beckett. Sorry, I couldn't remember his name.
No, that's okay.
I got some of them. I got Gibbs. I got Norrington.
I mean, Beckett's new, so you're good.
So you got Beckett, who is after the compass because he wants to control the sea, right? So that he has control of piracy, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
he wants Davy Jones's heart so he can control the sea.
So is there a link that makes these things all happen at the same time, or is it convenient that that guy and Jack Sparrow are both after the key at the same time.
I think that probably does just come down to convenience. Because
Okay.
with Jack, it's like, yeah, he's just happening to be dying at this time.
It's like,
and then,
what made you think to go after this mythological artifact that you can't even be sure is real, at the same time as Jack Sparrow is needing to go after it so that he can, like, fix this problem with his eternal soul or whatever? Like, that all seems kind of easy.
I think it comes down to like that Civil War thing where like you have the Accords and Zemo kind of at the same time, and like they are kind of connected. I like slightly in that they're both about the same thing, but like it is convenient they're happening at the same time.
Well, because there's a lot of different, disparate mythological things that, like, treasures and stuff that you could be going after for various reasons. Like, the fact that that's... I was hoping that you would throw out a plot point that I missed with that, because I actually think that's kind of a problem.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there's nothing that I can think of offhand, but
Yeah, that's too easy. It's like, we need this
no, that's fair.
MacGuffin for this movie. So it would be like if in a superhero movie you had some artifact that the hero and the villain were both after at the same time, and only because they both fought to go do it at once, not because they both saw like a news broadcast that said, "Hey, this thing is here," or like something that would tip everybody off at once that would make people go race towards it.
Mhm.
You don't have that with this, as far as I can tell.
No, they're both just ultimately going along this path. So, no, that's fair.
There is a little bit of a why now question with that, I guess. Where, like,
Well, and
why didn't
for
Beckett
Jack,
think to try this a year ago?
yeah.
I
Well,
don't
I
know.
guess the argument could just be that like their company's been like building over time, so we're like just now getting to the point where they can do that.
Yeah, Robert says Beckett hasn't been in his position for that long, at least. So like that maybe helps a little bit, but then I would have maybe had some kind of line or discussion about how this is a thing he's been like obsessed with for a long time, or like researching,
hmm
that he's been into, and now he's in a place of power where he can finally do something about it.
Yeah.
Just something where it doesn't seem like out of the ether everybody is suddenly thinking about this mythological creature that may or may not be actually a thing, or
Yeah.
a mythological artifact. It would be like if everybody at once in a movie went, you know what? I mean, it's only two people, I get that, but it would be like if your hero and a villain in a movie both went, I was thinking the other day about Pandora's box. That's got to be out there somewhere. Let's go find that and open it.
Well, wait till you get to 4, Cap.
Oh no, was that Pandora's box?
No, it's the Fountain of Youth, but it's what we're talking about here, but with like 6 people. And it's like,
Oh.
okay, now we're all gonna go after this thing.
Robert says Beckett also has that history with Jack. He's the one who branded him a pirate. Well, then all you need, and maybe you haven't and I missed it, because I forgot about that part of it. Thank you. Then all you have to do is just have some line about like his knowing about it because of Jack.
hmm Yeah, something.
There needs to be a correlation. I'll stop complaining about this, but I think it's a problem.
Yeah, you're gonna talk over this guy getting whipped, Cap.
Yeah, I talked over that and talked over that awesome organ stuff.
Oh yeah, it's so goofy, and I love it so much. He's got like a big devil organ.
That he plays with his face tentacles.
Yeah, with his
With his
beard.
beard tentacles.
I also just like that Davy Jones is, I guess, so powerful. Like he doesn't need weapons. Like he's just this guy. He's got a crab arm.
Yeah, well, he's kind of godlike.
Exactly. Which they play with even more in the third one, I think, in action scenes.
Yeah, there's definitely this kind of hierarchy we're playing with, where you have these characters that are essentially like in a pantheon.
Yeah, well, it's like I said earlier in that comic booky way, is you have your Lex Luthor, and then this is your like General Zod.
Yeah, that's a good call. I like the nose thing, where he's like twitching all the time.
Well, there's the part earlier where they're doing their bargain where he like puffs his lip out, and like I can't repeat that. I don't know how you do that, but it's really goofy. I also like that they have like water spewing out of their mouths sometimes. I think that's a cool detail.
Yeah, it really is. The starfish on the side of his dad's head is good, is also a cool choice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I like that there's like a progress where you get worse and worse as you go, where you just become more fish-like.
Oh, you know what? I didn't even pick up on the idea that that's what's happening, but that makes a lot of sense.
Well, and when you get
So,
into the
he's turning
third
into
movie,
a fish person.
yeah, when you get into the third movie, because you have the guy here that's like connected into the wall, and his
Yes.
dad is like that in the third movie, where it's like
Oh.
progressed even farther.
The guy in the wall is one of the pieces of CG that does not hold up the best.
It's not amazing. Yeah, you're right about that.
Yeah.
I like his brain. I like his brains there.
Oh, I didn't catch that before. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, because they do, because they have like the Phantom Jack Sparrows in the third movie, and they do a Jack Sparrow like that, and he's like, "I dropped me brain."
Okay, I can't believe I didn't have this thought earlier, Austin.
Mhm.
You know what this reminds me of?
What's that?
Not everybody here is going to understand this reference. It's the Eternal Youth Spot.
Yes.
We did a commentary on that together for the 24-hour stream when we were doing DC cartoons. DCAU cartoons. And there's a Batman Animated Series episode where Poison Ivy lures people to a spa and then turns them into plants. And he looks like he spent too long at the Eternal Youth Spot.
That's amazing.
And that shares a similar theme to this, I guess, in that maybe, the Fountain of Youth isn't, you wouldn't really want that. You wouldn't necessarily really want to live forever. Like, at what cost?
Yeah, exactly.
To be immortal. Immortality is a bad thing in these movies.
No, it absolutely is.
Right? Like, people that are immortal are trying to get back to a more natural life, not because they have a death wish, but because immortality is awful. Nobody gets to live forever and actually enjoy it, right? Is there an example of a character that keeps living and wants to? Like, even Davy Jones doesn't seem to like his life all that much.
Well, and that's kind of Jack Sparrow's character arc through the third movie.
He's very anti-morale. I love that. I love that scene later where he's like, "No, enjoying yourselves." I don't remember what exactly he says, but he's like, he's like cracking the whip on his
family is for weaklings.
But I'm sorry, what were you gonna say?
Well, that's Jack Sparrow's character arc through the third movie, because in the third one they set up the idea.
Yeah, Robert just wrote that too. That's his arc in the third movie. Yeah.
Yeah, if you stab Davy Jones' heart, you become Davy Jones, like you take his place. And Jack Sparrow's whole thing is like, well, I can be immortal, but like, here's all the like things that are bad about that, and like, he's like Davy Jones, I can't go on land until like once every 10 years. Like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But like, I can rule the sea. Like, that's cool. But like, I can't do this, and I could become a fish person.
Well, then that gets interesting because how much of being a pirate is about being on a pirate ship and being at sea, and how much of it is the other half of it is the getting off the ship and the pillaging and
that kind of like adventuring,
all of that. Yeah, it's not just about the travel.
Exactly. The ship is just how you get from place to place, really.
Yeah. Well, and like there's a camaraderie that maybe you build with your shipmates and all of that, but and like maybe sometimes you'll come upon another ship that you can then go be a pirate and steal stuff from. But it's isolating. You lose track of the outside world.
Yeah, exactly.
You lose perspective. I think these movies do a good job of playing out the pros and cons of living on a ship. I like at the beginning where the pirates don't like it when you don't have a heading. Like, we don't know where we're going. We're just out here. When he's like that away, they're like, we can't have that. We need a heading. That's
we
important.
need to be going somewhere.
And we haven't talked really about the compass, but that's a you have kind of multiple MacGuffins in this movie, and I like that they're not generic. Like they all do something, both like in and of themselves and for the story, and arguably they all, I guess, do thematic things too. Like Jack is wayward and can't decide what he wants, and he's got a compass that plays that out. And you have a character whose weak spot is his heart, and he's forgotten how to have compassion and have that. I don't know if Davy Jones ever had a heart. I'm not sure what he was like before that was put in a box. I don't really
you
know.
get like a little bit of that in the third movie, because when they have his scene with Calypso, Tia Dalma's character.
But that's another thing where
Bill Nighy
it's nice the way we don't hold the audience's hand and like feel the need to lay out everything at the beginning, but it's also not hard to follow. So we've got this compass that doesn't point north and it's just spinning around. It's like, why is Jack following? What is happening? Where he's like, let's go this way. And then it's a nice payoff when we finally know what that thing does, and that it's a mythical artifact that once you know what it does, you understand why that guy wants it so bad. That guy right there, that's in front of a map, like he's going to tell us the weather on the Weather Channel.
Yeah, because he controls the world. He's got the whole world behind him.
I didn't understand that symbolism before.
Well, that was the thing I was going to ask you about. Is
Beckett. Beckett's his name. That's right.
Yeah, he's the boss from About Time.
All I gotta think about. Oh, is that who that is? All I've got to think about is because you said that there's kind of a reunion of actors from that movie.
Yeah, and because Davy Jones is the dad, so you have like both villains are like key parts of that guy's life.
That's really funny. No, I guess all I got to think about it. All I got to remember is Quantum Leap to come up with Beckett. I should be able to come up with Beckett if I just think Quantum Leap. Anyway, I'm sorry.
Yeah, there you go.
I have no idea how much of this I've had.
Oh boy, we're getting into it. Strap in, folks.
We've still got a good hour and a half here. No, hour?
Probably an hour at this point.
Hour 10, maybe?
Hour 10.
This has actually been kind of flying by just because there's been, like, as elongated as I think this is, I don't mean to say that there's not a lot in it. In fact, one of the things I appreciate about the first movie is that it is a little bit simpler of a story. Like
that's the biggest complaint with the sequels is that they're too complicated.
Now, are they? Because these are, of course, different ideas. Are they complicated, or are they convoluted, or are they both? Because I don't think they're convoluted. I think there's just a lot of stuff.
I think that they're just complicated.
Follow them.
Yeah, no, there's just a lot going on, and like every character has like a different motivation that they want, and like I think we do a good job of tracking all of that. Like I never feel like I'm lost, but there's just like a lot happening. I think they picked a good story to split into two movies. Like I do think that it doesn't feel like we're running thin.
Robert says the third one doesn't hold up as well as this one. It sounds like you'd probably agree with that.
Yeah, so 3 is not as good of a movie. I can understand why people don't really like it, but it's kind of got that Lone Ranger thing where I'm like, but I have so much fun with it, and like it's so awesome that I don't care. But it's definitely the weakest.
Well, that's a different animal for me because Lone Ranger I thought was like real elongated and kind of boring, and then the more I thought about it and wrote about it, I was like finding a lot of ideas in it that were interesting, and so then I was liking it more. But you were finding it more fun than I was.
No, because it just reminded me of watching one of these, and I was like, oh, like I'm into this. Like I like this.
Well, and somehow I saw that movie a couple of times before I realized that it was the same guy that made these, so I had a totally different experience with it once I went, oh, okay, it's the director that did the Pirates movies.
No, I just like Gore Verbinski in general. Like between these, like I said, I like Lone Ranger. I love The Ring. Like he's done quite a few things that I really like.
You have to keep reminding me that the ring is him, and like every other time you mention it, my mind gets blown. Like you've told me that. Guy, he made the ring. Oh yeah, that's right. We keep talking about that. We need to do a commentary on that because I love the
Yeah.
ring, and I haven't seen it in a long time.
No, and that's on the list. That's definitely a good one to do.
Can we?
And Rango's great. Thank you, Daniverse.
Oh, is it really? That's
Yeah,
the thing
actually,
that I
Cap,
couldn't get excited about looking at, but
you should watch that because you're not like super crazy about Lone Ranger because that's his better Western.
oh, okay, okay. Can we all agree that these dice are probably also made of bone?
Yes.
I think
They're
we
made
can
of
agree with
fish
that.
bone. Well, I love that their swords are made of fish bone. Like, that's such a cool detail.
Yeah, and considering they're kind of fish people, there ends up being like a little bit of a cannibalistic nature to them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. They're all weird.
They're all weird.
Yeah, look at these guys.
At the end of the day, this is all disgusting.
Yeah.
The details don't matter. This life is awful.
Yeah, imagine living like this.
I mean, arguably, this is worse than the cannibal tribe because none of those people have longer than like 12, 15 years left to live, right? Like,
Yeah.
at least they're not going to make it very long.
Yeah, these people have to live for like over 100.
These people have to keep doing that. And again, what's kind of interesting when okay, so sorry, his laughing in particular, that CG is one of the big things that reminds me of Voldemort. Like anytime Voldemort laughs, it kind of looks like that.
Oh, certainly, yeah.
But anyway, one thing you gotta keep in mind is that with the dice game, whenever somebody is playing that and they're bargaining with years off their sentence, or years off of their servitude, like they're wanting to die. They want to leave this and not have to do it anymore. When that happens, it's not like they have a home to go back to. They're dead after that.
Yeah, they're just dead. Bye.
That's depressing, isn't it?
Well, imagine living your life as this guy. I don't even know what he is.
He looks like a Power Rangers henchman from one of the Disney seasons.
He looks like a really badly drawn Groot. He's like really off model.
Okay, so explain Will's plan to me for a second. Because he tells his dad, you shouldn't have gotten involved in trying to save me. It wasn't about whether I won or lost. It's just about getting the key. But is the idea that as long, like, whether he were to owe them or owe Davy Jones servitude or not, if he can escape, it doesn't matter, he can't be held to it? Is that the idea? Because
that's what he's
it's kind of
thinking,
convenient that ultimately he ends up not having those years of servitude. But what if he had full on lost? Because he acts like it doesn't matter what the outcome is.
Well, because I think he thinks that he can just get out of it, and I don't think it's that easy. Like, I think he's underestimating this.
Okay.
But
because it doesn't seem to be that easy considering Jack Sparrow.
No, well, and I think too, like, he's not as concerned as he will become later. Like, especially when you get to like the Kraken stuff, like there's almost like a realization of like, oh man, like this is like really serious. It's like a lot worse than I thought it was. So yeah, I think it's just him underestimating Davy Jones.
I mean, think about just how depressing this is. The only thing these guys that don't want to be here and be like, whipped all the time having to work on the ship, the only thing they might have to look forward to is that maybe at some point the Kraken will show up and drag them down and kill them.
Well, and another thing with Will too is that we're basically doing Luke and Darth Vader, but in a way that doesn't feel like we're ripping it off. Like it's separated enough that it's the same archetype, but not exactly. Like you don't really realize that unless you stop and think about
That's
it.
That's interesting. Yeah, I hadn't really thought about that.
Because like that is basically what he is. Like
really
he is a henchman of the
his dad
villain.
To Darth Vader, but I guess sort of.
Because well, the only reason I say that is because it's the same plot of like I need to save my dad. Like I need to bring him back. He's obviously not as gone as Darth Vader is. Like he can talk to his dad, and his dad's not a bad person.
Yeah.
But like he's still lost in this like villain side.
Yeah, he hasn't lost his humanity, but he is stuck having to, he's got his loyalty to the master, but then he's gonna break that more easily than Vader does.
No, it's almost like you took the tagline of Luke and Vader and then built it into its own thing.
Yeah, that's interesting. Obviously, you've had time to think about this.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Back to the visual effect thing
Yeah.
for a second. Don't you think, to my point earlier, that a lot of the reason some of the effects hold up as well as they do is because of the stuff that intelligently we did practically? I complain about this all the time, and people don't always agree with me on this, but man, if we did this now, I swear to God, Austin, Bill Turner, his father, his face would be CG for no good reason.
His face would be CGI.
It would, for no good reason. Look, all you had to do was do some makeup. Most of it is a human face. What are you doing? There's no reason Steppenwolf should have a CG face. I stand by this. There's no reason. We see this all the time. And like some of Thanos' minions in the Avengers movies, I'm sorry, there's no reason they all needed to be CGI. You have these close-ups on their faces where it's a human-shaped face with like, some Star Trek forehead ridges and crap. Like, put some makeup on it, and then it's more convincing. And then when you have a thing that you have to do more CG, like Thanos, although I still argue you could do more of that in makeup, but whatever, then we'll buy it a little bit more. It's more credible.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I mean, you have it here, like, all the henchmen, for the most part, are CGI, but then Bill Turner, like, we obviously need more... more character-driven scenes with him, so we make him not fully CGI, and you can see more of the actor. But then it also isn't distracting when you have Davy Jones, who is the main villain, and he's fully CGI.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, and I mean, like I said earlier, like, making these movies would have been a giant pain in the ass. Like, we wouldn't be on real ships now. Like, none of this stuff is being built.
No, and don't you think that the performances are all probably a lot more convincing because they're really on a friggin' ship?
Yeah. The climax of the third movie, they like built two ships like up in the air side by side.
Yeah, I've heard this.
Dumped rain onto them and stuff, and like it's a horrible, horrible shoot.
But you buy so much more of it.
Yeah.
You can tell these actors are, and I'm not saying I've never seen a convincing performance from an actor in front of a green screen where they could convince you that they were actually really there, but it's so much harder, and it's so much better for the actors. Like, in a way, they're having to go through the rigors of doing a physical shoot if they have to deal with, like, water and heat and snow and whatever it is still easier on them than having nothing to act against, like they're Steve from Blue's Clues. Like, you'd much rather be in freezing temperatures and know that your performance is coming out because you're uncomfortable than be Steve from Blue's Clues.
Well, I think a good example of this, Cap, is that we're actually on ships, so like you're not having to think about like, oh, how am I walking? Like, you have that. And then you also have the reverse of what you're saying too, where like you can see it from both sides, where like I don't for a second buy that, like, or I am never taken out by like, oh, they can't actually see what these fish people look like.
Yeah.
Like they do a good job.
Because some of them are there.
Yeah. Well, and like, you get Bill Nye in his mocap suit getting in your face, and like, yeah, I believe that they're seeing what I'm seeing. Like,
well, and yeah, I guess most of the fish people aren't actually there, but yeah, you're right, because so much of it really is there. You're buying them playing against all the stuff that isn't. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Because the stuff that is there and helping it. The stuff that's not there, I think they do a good enough job that like they're able to sell that too.
But there's also an energy to the performances that I just don't know that you'd have if you did it the George Lucas way from the prequels.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely.
It comes through the performances. Like it's not just about acting against people that are there, but also just creating the environment to give you the atmosphere that elicits a particular performance. It's exactly the same reason that Gunn plays music score from the film that you're making on set. He's like trying to create an atmosphere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, that helps with performances. Don't just slap your actors on a blue set and say, okay, say your lines now. Don't get to read the full script.
Oh, I just had this thought, but this movie is a way better remake of Clash of the Titans than the remake of Clash of the Titans.
It absolutely is.
Release the Kraken!
This movie also knows what a Kraken is. I mean, I love the original Clash of the Titans, but that is just a funny thing with it.
Well, and you know what? I've never actually seen that movie.
You should. It's a fun little adventure movie.
More than, a couple scenes here and there.
Yeah, no, that's a fun movie.
But didn't Harryhausen actually do a version of the Odyssey as well? Or like something else that had...
Well, he did Jason and the Argonauts. Is that what
he did Jason and the Argonauts. I thought there was something besides Clash of the Titans, though, that had like actual Scylla and Charybdis, but I might be...
Possibly, and I'm not entirely sure. That's one of those guys that I need to see more stuff from, but I love what I've seen. Well, stuff like Clash of the Titans is also playing into these movies. Like, Verbinski's definitely a fan of that stuff.
Austin, I'm taking a little bit of time off for the holidays. I'm going to play right after this, probably. Like, not tonight because it's going to be late, but like maybe tomorrow or the next day. This has got me wanting to go to God of War so bad.
Oh, cool! Yeah, I'm in
that mood now, and I haven't. And I know the new one just came out. I haven't played the one before that yet. But I bought it like a couple of years ago, and I still haven't played it. So I'll probably go back and play that.
After we watched the first one, I played a bit of Rare's last game, Sea of Thieves.
You were telling me about that. Yeah, they did a pirate game.
Yeah, and they did a tie-in like last year with the series.
Yeah, I think you mentioned that on our commentary, maybe.
But I had so much fun with that, but I had nobody to play with, so it's just me on my own ship with no crew.
It's nuts how good that stuff in the background looks to his swimming.
It looks so good. I also just love that you never really get a good, straight-on, like, clear view of what the Kraken looks like entirely.
It's all in pieces. You see arguably most of it, but never all at once. Well, maybe not even. Like, I'm not sure what the top of his head looks like. I mean, you get his mouth later.
Yeah. No, and you can like kind of see that it probably is just like a regular squid, but like big. But there's never like a very clear shot where you see all of it.
I also meant to say earlier that, real quick in case I forget to say this, that the big tragedy, I guess, with the relationship with Jack and what's her face, Elizabeth. Why can't I think of people's names now? The big tragedy with that is she's working really hard to get him to make the right choices in life and be the good person that she knows he can, all ultimately to manipulate him into sacrificing himself and saving everybody at the end. So like I don't know, like the whole thing is really sad, right? It's like
absolutely.
and she doesn't know that that's, I don't think that that's like the plan from the beginning exactly. Like it can't be.
It's not. I think so. How I read it is because you have that scene where he says like you're going to be drawn more to my life, and she says you're going to be drawn more to my way. And then
you almost have the how close does she become to being a pirate thing in this, like you did with Will in the first movie.
Mm-hmm. Well, and we go even farther with that in the third one because she almost has like a Sarah Connor thing as well, which we haven't really talked about. But in the first one, she's like a damsel.
That's a good point.
And then in this one, like she knows.
And then she stabs two guys with swords at once, back like this.
Yeah, exactly. And they go way farther with that in the third one. But you have the scene that we're getting to now, where they're both trying to convince each other
Sorry,
that
we're drinking now. This is the part where we're all drinking.
that they're both gonna like the
He
other's gonna
calls
come.
her Lizzie.
I know, I love that. But that's what you get by the end of the movie is, Jack comes back, he's going to do the heroic thing, he's going to save everybody, and then she's also going to do the pirate thing, and she's going to kill him at the end. So they're both right.
Yeah, but what makes it even sadder, I guess, is that she is applauding him for like curbing his impulses at one point when he is really wanting to get with her, and she is like flaunting herself in front of him, and he finally is like pushes against it, and she's like, "Oh, good job, Jack," and then she uses feminine wiles to get him to do the right thing at the end.
Well, and part of it too is he's like, it's not even that he rejects her. He goes in for the kiss, and then he sees that the black spot's on his hand,
Oh
and
yeah,
he's
that's what it
horrified
is.
by that. And she's
But
like,
she
"Oh,
doesn't
good
know
job,
that's what
Jack."
it is.
Yeah.
Like,
She's like, "Good job."
is she supposed to be testing him in that scene where it's like, I'm seducing you, but I'm hoping that you make the right choice because I'm trying to prove to you that you're actually a good person? Because he says, like, despite all the evidence to the contrary, which is a line I like.
Yeah, I think so. I also think that she is like tempted by him. Like you get that scene where she looks at the compass and it's pointing at Jack, and it's like, is
Oh.
she maybe like starting to lean towards that?
See,
I
I
don't know.
couldn't decide if she was actually tempted by him at all. Like, they have a really interesting chemistry. Oh,
I think
sorry.
it wants you at least to think.
So she does a face here where she like purses her lips that is spot on Julie Newmar. If you go back and look at Julie Newmar as Catwoman in 60s Batman, she makes exactly that expression.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah, and I don't see her do it anywhere else, really. It's just in that moment where I'm like, oh, you're doing this, like, and it's kind of a seductive thing sometimes when Julie Newmar does it too. And I'm like, in like 2 seconds, Keira Knightley is like sexy and exactly the same way Julie Newmar is, but never again. It's really interesting.
And it's also interesting because it's the reversal, right? Like it's like if Catwoman was Batman and Batman was Catwoman.
Yeah, that's true.
Where's my job, dude?
Well, until you get to the very end, and then she's a lot more Catwoman-y, I guess, in the way she, seduces the hero into doing a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
Robert Wild says, I've never cared much for the love triangle with them, honestly. Yeah, there's not any part of me at all that actually would want those two characters to get together, or that likes being teased that they might. What's fun about the seductive thing for me is that she's using it to try to help him see that he's actually a good person. That's
more
what's
of
cool
like
about it to me.
Ideological thing that's interesting than an actual seduction.
Well, and I like subtle sexual chemistry. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like sexual tension. It doesn't mean that I ever want to see characters get together. You got the whole like TV shipping thing that always irritates me, where if two characters you've ever thought, wouldn't it be interesting if they get together, you really want to see that? No, there's no part of me that would want to see her and Jack actually get together. It doesn't mean
like me
that
with Batman and Catwoman.
they shouldn't have sexual chemistry and that it's not interesting that they do. But that's why I can't decide if there is any part of her that's actually tempted by him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I go that far. You know how far I do go. I've had too much of this already. I'm starting to feel it a little bit, folks. It's taken a little while, though. I gotta be honest with you. I was a little surprised by 45 minutes in, and I felt exactly the same as I did when we started. But I'm sorry, I'm cutting you off. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. I was just gonna say my biggest problem with the ending is that we set it up with like the CW love interest, like not love interest, like annoying love triangle thing where Will sees them kiss, and then that's gonna carry over into the third one where they're gonna be mad at each other for like half an hour, and it's like, yeah, I don't need that. Like, you, no, thank you.
Then we gotta watch him walk away angry.
Yeah, and that
gotta
they're
get all
gonna
the
end up
Cryptifreaks
together. Like,
crap in there.
I don't care. Exactly. Is that
Ryan
Florida?
Howe is just writing in lines he likes. Foul beasts, I will send you back to the depths of Hades.
So I had like as a kid, I think I got it at Disney, or no, I think I got it in Florida.
Why is
Uh,
the rum always gone? I still have some. I'm good.
I got like that chest, like the dead man's chest, and as a kid, I would like find things on like trips and stuff, and I would like fill the chest with it. I don't know where that is. Like I don't know what where it is. Like I'd like to find that because I'd show it off on the show. But
Yeah, I think you
it's a
mentioned
thing.
either off camera to me or on the commentary that you had that.
Hmm.
I want to see it, man.
Yeah, it's like a really crappy version. Like it has no detail and it's just like lime green. But I loved it as a kid, and I like had lots of cool trinkets. Cool trinkets.
Well, clearly my theory is wrong because all three of them are now standing on this beach and the music's not suddenly going dun 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 dun.
Will, you're back. That would
It's
have
like
been awesome.
entirely inappropriate.
The organ music starts playing.
We cut back to Davy Jones, and he's playing the theme on the organ with his face. He's like, dun, 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 dun.
That's a Lego joke, right? I also didn't mention this, but one of my favorite things about the series is that none of the villains can pronounce Jack's name right, and I
Is that
love that
true?
that's like a big thing. They all pronounce it weird. Like Davy Jones calls him Jack Sparrow, and Barbosa does that thing where he's like Jack. Like they
So
all
that's
pronounce it
intentional then,
weirdly.
right?
No, it absolutely is, and I like that as a detail. It's cool. Like Davy Jones has that moment where he realizes that the chest is empty, and he yells Jack Sparrow at the top of his lungs. It's awesome.
Uh, every time somebody in this movie goes, "Who is Davy Jones?" I always want to respond with the lead singer of the Monkees.
I didn't even know that. I don't know any of the monkeys members.
Yeah, that's Davy Jones.
I love when they start fighting and Elizabeth's just on the side screaming at them to stop.
Yeah, and then and this feels like a cartoon gag, right? Like almost a Looney Tunes gag, where she's standing off to
She
the side and
faints.
keeps trying to. This goes on forever, and she keeps trying to come up with ways to get them to stop. And then finally she goes, "I'm fainting," and like nobody notices.
Oh, they.
She resorts to doing like the stereotypical damsel thing. Does not help. No one
And
cares.
they're all just running in a circle fighting. It's not even elaborate yet.
Jar Jar Ed says, "Move over, Princess Bride. This is the best sword fight in movie history." I mean, we could probably come up with even some other things above Princess Bride, but not to disparage that movie, but like there's a lot of good sword fights. This one, I guess, just has the advantage of having some impressive choreography and then going on for like 6 years.
Well, that's because I ultimately like the Jack and Davy Jones fight in 3 better, which is a lot shorter. But also, what I like about their fight is that it starts as a sword fight, and then like we immediately kind of drop that. Like Jack's sword's broken like almost right away, and then it becomes more of like him running from Davy Jones, and I think that's really fun.
Elizabeth, can I make a suggestion? You could try going closer to them first.
No, just pout like a child.
Because there are certain shots where she looked a lot closer to them, and then that shot, it looked like she was like 1,000 feet away.
Yeah, well, they're just running. They're running around.
That's true.
I also like the other fight scene where there's 3 people fighting like the whole crew, but they only have 2 swords, and they're like throwing them back and forth. I think that's a cool action scene.
Yeah. This one's crazy just because it goes on for so long. We're in like different locales.
Oh, this is a an awesome shot too. Like we're right bright daylight, getting close-ups of some of these henchmen guys, and I think it looks pretty good.
Yeah, that's impressive. And the setup and payoff with them is great. Where like you forget about them because this stuff goes on for so long in the water wheel, and then it's such a great gag. Like one of the things Verbinski does so well is balancing like dramatic tension with like comedic stuff, right? So in the action, so you've got setup and payoff that's just kind of textbook in dramatically, but then you've also got it comedically and all at the same time. So you have all these fish henchmen that show up and they're looking for the chest, and then they're running after them, but then they'll disappear for a while, and then at the worst possible moment they'll show back up, and it's really funny.
Yeah.
But it's also good job, movie. You're remembering like not only are you, it has its cake and eats it too, where it's the perfect time for them to show up, but also you buy that it would take that long for them to get there. Like we're keeping track of everything.
Well, it's also funny because like this fight scene's more like Errol Flynn-y, like adventure-y,
That's
while the
exactly
other
right.
one's more like fighting for your life. And there's just moments where they cross over, like the people fighting the fish people like look over, there's a giant wheel going by, and they're like, "What the hell's going on over there?"
It's like that's
what?
weird, and then they just keep going.
Yeah.
No,
It's
that's
just
one
like
of my
a
favorite
2 seconds
bits.
to
Is just this
acknowledge.
wheel in the back, and everybody just turns and looks.
I was like, "What?" Yeah, exactly.
This sword fight does have, I think, the problem a little bit of the characters seem to know that their lives aren't that much in danger yet because the script hasn't said the fight's over yet. Like there's a part where Jack will run off and fall down a hole, and he doesn't seem to be that concerned that somebody's going to stab somebody else behind him in the time that it takes for him to get back, because it's like, oh well, I'm in the middle of this action scene, it's just going to keep going.
Then the wheel rolls over his head.
Well, the best part about that, we just keep talking about everything just before it happens, because now he's in the
fell
hole.
into his grave.
But what's great with the wheel is he gets out of it. And then, this is very sympathetic, we can all relate to this, because he loses his keys.
Yeah. Well,
his key gets stuck in the wheel, and then I'm just thinking like, oh man, all those times where you're trying to find your keys and they're just out of your reach. You gotta go get them.
Well, what's funny about it was when he gets out, he's like running and he gets hit by that pole that only exists for that one gag. Because then he gets back in the wheel and he's running and there's no pole.
Oh, really? I didn't catch that. He gets stuck on a nail.
Yeah, because watch. So Jack's running, boom, pole.
He gets hit like Scotty in Star Trek V.
And then later he'll just get back in the wheel. And
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. My favorite bit is when he gets back in the wheel to get his keys. His key.
That pole no longer exists. It's it's like we keep saying, like it's that kind of cartoony comic book logic, but it's not taking me out. Like it's like it feels of a piece, I think.
Oh yeah, I forgot it was them cornering Elizabeth like this. They just look over at the wheel. What was that?
Yeah, where I like this too because it's going back to the first one where they're the villains, and then we immediately go, okay, no, these guys are way scarier. Everybody run.
Oh, Robert also had the wheel playset.
Ah, so jealous of you, Robert. That's so cool.
Yeah, it sounds like he had a Ninja Turtles level collection, man.
Yeah, when I was a kid, my couch was the pirate ship, and the coffee table was the enemy pirate ship.
You'll just have to imagine the pirate ship.
Exactly. And I had, you had like Spider-Man and stuff. Yeah, because see, now he's just running and there's no pole.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah. I was wondering why he didn't get hit again, but it didn't occur to me that the pole was just gone. I love the mounted camera here. That's so freaking cool.
It's so cool. No, Verbinski just, he knows spectacle, man.
He's nuts, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and maybe one of us said this in the last commentary, but the balance of story to ride, and I don't think it's as good as with the first movie, but it's like
Certainly.
it's a ride because it's a blockbuster, it's a big popcorn action film, but it's also a ride because it's based on a ride. So you have all these scenes where you can imagine, I would say arguably every major action scene in especially this movie and maybe the last one too, you could build a theme park right around. And it really
Absolutely.
feels like that's intentional.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's almost smart, or well, not almost, like it just is smart that they ended up cutting out a lot of the references to the ride for the first movie, because we ended up just making things that feel like they could be a ride.
Yeah. That's just part of the package and the flavor of the whole thing.
Hmm.
And so how do you argue with this is too much spectacle, this is too much of a ride when it's based on a theme park ride? I mean, I guess if there were no characters to latch onto and you didn't have as much of a reason to care, but I think part of the reason that I don't mind some of those scenes where, like with the wheel, where Jack gets out because the universe is coalescing to his will, is not just because, well, he is going to die at the end, but also because it's if you went to a Disneyland ride like that, you'd have those moments, right, where it seems like your life is in danger, and then you get lucky and you land in the water, and then you float down the stream, and then now some other crazy thing happens, and right. Like,
Yeah,
that's what theme park rides are like.
Yeah, no, Jack's the main character of a ride that you're following, so you get like all those kinds of moments.
Yeah. The wheel thing is one of my favorite things in this movie. It's so funny.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And
I
it's
love
also
the wheel.
just crazy technically impressive.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think maybe my two favorite things, and these maybe aren't even the most impressive things because the Kraken stuff is great and like I love that too, but I guess just with Jack, the best stuff is the wheel and then earlier the fruit stick. God, I love the fruit stick.
Well, and I just had this thought now. The wheel almost plays as like like in a way, kind of a payoff for that cage thing where you have Will spinning in the thing rolling down a hill.
That's a good point. I didn't think of that.
Maybe not like set up and payoff, but at least like a connection there.
Imagine if somebody got out of one of those cages and for some reason they had to get back in it.
Yeah. I wouldn't want to go back in. I wouldn't want to be in a bone cage.
We didn't even mention them. It was made after we got here. we didn't
That
even,
wheel was made after we got here.
We didn't even mention that great line that extra got, where he goes, "Oh no, it would only take about 6 to run the ship."
I love that shot where they're like, "Okay, we're gonna keep going anyways," and he has that hand movement where he's like, so good.
Yeah, that guy's really good.
That's one of those just like great extras where you get him and you go like, give this guy a little bit more. Like he's pretty good.
I also like the bit where that we talked over, where Jack finally realizes what the point of the jar of sand is. And I kept expecting the sand to somehow be mystical or something, and I love that it's just a practical thing where she's like, "You're not gonna have that. You're not gonna have some way to store a human heart."
Yeah.
Oh, this is the bit of the score that I'm so super impressed with. We've had it a little bit earlier, but we talked over it. Where it's that string work that goes bar, I love that stuff.
No, the score to this movie is really good. These movies in general, not 5, but
You're making me so excited to watch that movie finally.
It's gonna be really funny when we eventually watch that.
Why do you have it?
Because okay, these movies are guilty pleasures.
Yes, but you don't own the good ones.
No, but I forget why. I think I just found it like cheap at
Oh,
Walmart,
okay,
and I just like picked it up. I bought that and Alien Covenant at the same time. Both movies I don't really like, but can probably watch.
I enjoyed Covenant in the theater, but I've only seen it the one time.
Yeah, I mean Covenant. It's got things.
My kids were friggin' baffled by the crab head. We're like,
the crab head guy's so cool.
Yeah, No, it's a great reveal. Fred just goes, and like Jason was already laughing super hard at his like trying to give his body instructions, which is absurd because the body doesn't have ears or anything.
Well, and Jack decapitating him with a coconut is one of my favorite things in this movie.
Yeah,
like,
we were all
really
laughing
funny.
at that, and then Freddy just goes, "Wait, he's a crab?"
Yeah, I know, it's so good.
He has his own home.
I love that he's like, no, come back. Ah, okay.
Deanna, there's nothing guilty about owning a movie, in my opinion. No, the question was, why only that one? If you're a completionist, sure, because his immediate response was, I like these movies. I'm like, you don't own these movies. You have the one you said nothing about even 4 you had a nice thing to say about.
Okay,
Not 5.
There's things where I'm like, oh, there's like an action scene or two I think is good in 5. The biggest issue with 5
Up until
is
this
that
very moment, you'd not said that yet.
the biggest issue with 5 is that it's a modern Lucasfilm Star Wars thing. Like, it's the Force Awakens of Pirates of the Caribbean.
Oh.
It's got that Solo thing that we both hate, where they give an origin for Jack's name a year before Solo came out.
I almost walked out of it. If I hadn't had my family in the theater with Solo, I would have walked out over that. And overall, I didn't mind that movie. Like,
It's fine.
I didn't love it. I don't need to see it again. Maybe at some point I will. I didn't. Dude, 10 minutes into that, they had to have a friggin' origin for his name. I was like, that's it. I'm out.
Yeah, with this, it's like you have the main villain, and he's like hunting a pirate, and then like little kid Jack, he like takes over the ship, and he like outmaneuvers the guy, and like they all die, and he's like, and that's where he was truly born. I saw him up there on the top of the ship, flying around like a little bird, Jack the Sparrow, and I'm like, no, don't do that.
No.
That's awful. How do you feel about revolving cannons cap? Makes no sense.
That's
so,
true.
So funny.
But I love the ornamentation of the cannons in the Flying Dutchman. They're super ominous and creepy looking.
The Flying Dutchman's just a cool design in general. Like, you have like the crocodile mouth at the front. It's so cool.
Yeah.
And like the revolving cannons don't make any sense, but they're cool. So
Ryan Howe, because everything needs an origin. Can we blame just the fact that movies won't stop doing prequels?
Yeah.
For the and that most of them have prequelitis, for the fact that even movies that aren't prequels have to give us flashback scenes that do cutesy prequel crap.
Well, and then with this, so 4, because we lose Will and Elizabeth, they go, okay, here's new Will and Elizabeth, but they're like farther in the background. And then 5 goes, okay, it didn't work because you need Will and Elizabeth to be the main characters. So we bring another new Will and Elizabeth, but new Will is the son of Will and Elizabeth, and new Elizabeth is the daughter of Barbossa, because it's just modern Star Wars.
Oh, so now it's a decades later sequel kind of thing.
Yes.
Where it's like new generation, but not far enough after the last one, so it doesn't even really warrant being like a generational thing?
Dude, that movie is so just The Force Awakens that Jack Sparrow goes on the main adventure with them, so he's Han Solo. Will Turner shows up for about 2 scenes, so he's Leia, and Keira Knightley shows up on an island at the end, has no lines, and just walks forward. She's the Luke.
Ryan Howe says, "What's next in origin for why Victor Sullivan smokes cigars?"
Yes.
I'm gonna go with in origin for Snake Plissken's name, where we get a flashback where he's a child, he has a pet snake.
He names a snake Pliskin.
Hey, you're a snake. Your name is Pliskin. That sounds good. I'm gonna be Snake Plissken.
Yeah, exactly. That is true. Robert Wilde brings up Indiana Jones, and they also give India an origin for his name.
I almost brought that up.
That one actually doesn't bother me. I think that one's fine. But I don't know if that's because I grew up with it.
Well, I mean, there's exceptions. I'm not saying you can never do it, but I don't like it when some of it is just like too many of these things where, how often do we have to do prequel things or flashbacks where a character is the exact opposite of what we know, and then they have to, have a light switch moment where they become who we know at some point?
Well, I think for Indiana Jones it works because it's just a nickname. Like, it's not like, oh, this is how he's got the name Jones.
The problem with Solo is that you have a lot of names in Star Wars where the name speaks to the character's personality, and to have to be so self-aware that character that like we spell it out in the narrative, like the characters that meet him are thinking about that. It's too much, right? Like,
Yeah, it's just going too far. No, absolutely.
we're not playing it straight enough as soon as anybody ever, even in my mind, looks at Han Solo and goes, oh, I get it, he's a loner. That's why his name is Han Solo. Like, when you have somebody give him that,
Yeah, his name should be Han Duo because he has
ruins
Chewbacca.
the whole the pulp factor.
Yeah,
Because that's why you name characters like that. It's an on-the-nose name that cannot be on the nose inside the narrative, or it screws up the whole thing. And then you've forgotten your roots. You've forgotten, ironically, the origin of the piece in the first place.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely.
Yep, I'm still drinking this, by the way.
We gotta drink it now because they're about to load the rum. So,
oh
rum's
yeah,
gonna be gone in a second.
Yeah, we have to mourn the loss of the rum, because if it tastes anything like this, that's a tragedy. It's an absolute tragedy.
They're about to blow it all up.
The look on Gibbs' face, that actor is so good when he goes...
Yeah, he's great.
When he tries to play up... I love the kind of cartooniness of it.
Like
in the best way possible, where he tries to play up like, okay, men, we have to make the sacrifice. Like, load the rum! And then he looks past the camera and is just like, oh... It's really good.
Yeah. I also love with this Kraken fight that it's like they do one thing and then he immediately takes that off the table. Like, it's like that Mr. Freeze boss fight in Arkham City. Like, yeah, you use this cannon thing? Okay, the cannons are gone now.
I really also like his line, this is the thing I wanted to mention when I saw it, heave like you're being paid for it.
Yeah.
Like, that's how you motivate pirates. It's not like your life is in danger. Like, your life is always on the line. It's like you're everything you do is for profit. You're being paid. And I like it. Like, we don't have any more to give you over this whole situation. Like your life, or like you're being paid for it. I love that.
When he's got the one earlier when they pick up the skeleton cage where he goes, lift, man, lift like you're lifting a lady's skirt.
Yeah, that's good.
That's the type of thing where it's like, it's risque, but like not too far.
No. It's, it's not gross or anything.
Exactly.
And also it's credible. It sounds like the kind of thing they would say.
Mm-hmm. No, I don't think we've really lost it.
They would be crass.
Great people. Yeah.
They they would be crass about those kinds of things.
Exactly. No, I remember
they wouldn't have tact.
In the first commentary, there was a commenter that said that 2 immediately loses that pirates aren't good people. But I don't think this movie does. Like, I think this movie understands that, like, yeah, these people are also, like, not especially, good morally. Like,
I think they seem a little bit more endearing, partly because of the situation, and partly because we've gotten to personally know them better, and we get relationships like with Gibbs and Jack, where you can see yourself in it some. You can relate to familial relationships like that.
Yeah. Well, and the big thing with these is that
real friendships.
The British are trying to take over the entire world, basically. Like, they're way worse.
Yeah, one complaint.
That's part of it.
One complaint I've got about this is I don't know that the stakes beyond like Jack's personal stakes and Will's dad and all that. The grander, the world is at stake. business is a little too far in the background, actually.
That's because it gets played up more in 3. We're kind of setting that stuff up to be
But I
more of
think
the
it's
focus.
easy at the end of the movie to not put together, oh
Oh, that's
crap,
fair.
this guy's got control of. Somehow you need to bring that more to the fore. And again, I never want to advocate for like holding the audience's hand too much, but some things need to be made more explicit or just tonally. It needs to feel more ominous. It needs to be a bigger deal. Like, it's a big deal that Beckett, I remembered it because of Quantum Leap, that Beckett is going to have control of Davy Jones. And Davy Jones has been kind of our big like face front villain the whole movie, but Beckett's been in the background, and now if he's got access to his heart, then he's going to be controlling who we've been thinking of as the main villain of the piece. Like, even if that's what the whole next movie is about, I would.
It needs to be more in this one.
Yeah, the second to
fair.
last scene should be somehow Davy Jones like, oh crap, this guy controls me now, or something like that. Because I think it's really easy to miss it.
No, that's fair. I do think you need maybe, I don't know, it's hard to say, but the fact that like the Kraken just dies off screen and Becca goes like, yeah, I made you kill that, we maybe should have actually seen that.
Yeah, and should it be here or open the next movie? I don't know,
that's
but
what I
we
was
should
just
see
thinking.
that.
That's what I was thinking exactly. Like, should that be at the end of this? I don't know. Like, I don't know.
I'm not sure where you'd put it. Yeah,
The opening of 3
we're right at the end here, aren't we?
is crazy. I wouldn't change the opening of 3. The opening of 3 is, I can't believe this isn't a Disney movie.
I can't believe it's not butter.
Exactly.
But yeah, this kind of misunderstanding crap with love
Yeah, I don't
triangles
need
drives
that.
me crazy, man. I hate it. There's nothing interesting about this. There's no tension to it because we know it's a misunderstanding. So all you're going to do is make these characters feel unreasonable for the sake of drama until you finally let them talk about what really happened, or immediately start talking about it and be reasonable in the first place. And then if you did that, what's the point of having this in the first place? So just don't do that. Like,
Exactly.
all you need to do is not have Will actually see this, because who cares? Like, the kiss is not the problem. There's, at least as far as the love triangle thing is concerned.
Yeah. I just noticed Jar Jar had said that there actually is a deleted scene apparently where Davy Jones finds out that Beckett controls him. If I knew that, I've forgotten that, but
Boy,
I
it
guess
feels like a
for
missing
time.
scene. It feels like a beat that should be there, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know.
That seems like a major dramatic beat to me that you'd want to leave the audience with. There's two big things that you'd want to leave the audience with. Beckett's the real bad guy now, and Jack Sparrow's about to be resurrected, and somehow Barbossa still has been resurrected.
Mm-hmm. No, it's just an awesome cameo.
But I'm just saying that like that's the other part of that we're left with is he's walking downstairs. I guess he's alive somehow.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Well, in the Universe, I think part of the problem with he says gotta have a love triangle in there somehow. It's the kind of thing that feels, because this movie does a really good job.
Manufactured.
It does a really good job of not repeating the whole story or formula from the first film and building on it. And that's one of the things that does feel too sequel-y, where it's like, what's a major trope where we can kind of go back to the well of like what, you know, sequel things like to do. The first movie didn't really resort to love triangle, so I suddenly have one.
Yeah, because there's like Jack and Elizabeth stuff in the first one, but like it's played more cutesy, I think. And then here it's like, I like their scenes together. It's just that scene's too far.
Okay, so can I say something that's going to sound ridiculous?
Yes.
This is going to sound like a massive contradiction, because it is. So you have the green screen where
where
Jack
the Kraken
is in front of the Kraken.
Yeah.
And simultaneously, I find it really realistic, and it also doesn't look like he's there all at the same time. It's so strange.
Well, I think it looks cool. It just, it's like the CGI is dated, but I'm also with the movie enough that it doesn't
I
bother
think the
me.
CG looks great. I just think his standing in front of it with a green screen, it doesn't look like he's really there. But then the music being let out, like there's no music behind it, and the like breathing from the creature is hitting his hat and stuff. So like it feels really real, but then it doesn't look like he's there.
I also think it's just like an awesome moment. Like
It's such a good moment.
it was the type of thing I hated as a kid because it was like, oh man, like I want to see Jack Sparrow like kill the Kraken. I don't want him to die. But like, as an adult, I'm like, no, this is a really effective ending. Obviously, like I understand it more
Well, and
now.
it's so much cooler after you explained uh, the thing with the cannibal tribe, because I had not thought of that.
Yeah, no, it's just one of those things where the entire movie is Jack running from his death, and then eventually he can't run anymore. Like he's hit that point. That's ultimately his story in this. And then his story in the next one will be, can I be immortal? I don't know. Yeah, man, like we're bright daylight, like getting right in their faces. We're
How
not
does it
afraid
look
of any
that
of
good?
this. Like,
Particularly Davy Jones, yeah.
and
So
there's just so many
did
like
you
moving
not
pieces.
did you not really expect him to open the chest and there'd be something else in place of the heart, not an empty box?
Like a troll doll.
Yeah, exactly.
And then he puts it on his little console, on his
Right.
piano, on his organ. Yeah, absolutely.
So this is not what I wanted for the scene. I wanted to cut to him and then maniacally he like he brings his hand up and he's already got the heart somehow. He's like doing this.
He starts eating it. No, and as a kid, I was always like, "Oh, Beckett's boring," but like as an adult, I'm like, no, I like his kind of Lex Luthor-y feel.
Yeah, it's very Lex Luthor. Well, and I like that in a movie called Pirates of the Caribbean, piracy itself is at stake.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
we're moving into a world, but through a mystical way. We're because we talk about how things are changing and because of exploration, the world is getting smaller, right?
Which has such a great payoff in the third movie.
I'm excited to
That's
get to
like a
that
thing
because I
that they
don't
keep
remember it.
saying. Yeah,
But I like that we're using the whole mythological thing to help us get there. So some of it is technological progress, and some of it is the wrong people are getting their hands on stuff. And then this is the thing that looks like the pirates, right?
yeah. And it's scored by the knife.
Oh yeah, that's great. I was making some kind of a point, but
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, you were saying something about that. No, I can't remember because I had like a rebuttal to what you're saying, but I've
I don't
lost.
agree with you, but I don't even know what you're talking about now. So
Yeah. Well, no, sorry, not maybe not a rebuttal, but like a response to that. Oh, about piracy being at stake.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. No, that is really cool. And then, because the third movie opens up with
Yeah,
just
because
like
it's
a
true.
line of pirates
Because
that
we
are
would
hanging
be
in the
with this
street.
point in history, we'd be at the tail end of what we think of as like classical piracy, and so like how do we work that into the narrative where we can make piracy itself at stake because of how we're in a because piracy is so much about like the movie talks about the edges of the map we haven't filled in yet.
Mhm.
And so once the you don't have any frontiers left, then
Yeah,
it would be
that's gone.
harder for people like Jack Sparrow to even operate.
Mhm. No, exactly. Well, that's the thing, is they keep saying like the world's getting smaller because yeah, there's nothing left to explore really. And there's a great line in three that's like the payoff to that, where Jack says, "The world's not smaller; there's just less in it." And it's like this really good character moment that he has.
Oh, that's really interesting. The world is not enough.
That's garbage.
It's the best James Bond film, or not the best James Bond film, certainly the best James Bond theme anybody ever composed. Unfortunately, the movie sucks, but the theme is amazing.
I really like that theme. That's not my favorite, but that's like top 10, I think. Like that is a really good Bond
Well, it's
theme.
mine, so deal with it.
Sorry.
I also like that band. It was just really impressed that they managed to like stay garbage, but be such a like consummate James Bond theme.
Oh, absolutely. Well, that theme's also interesting because it's from the perspective of the villains, and it's got like a cool thing with that.
Oh yeah, I'd never really given that any thought. I just like the melody a lot as a Bond theme.
That's got a really weird music video.
At World's End, registered trademark.
Cap, have you ever wanted to show up in a movie for 5 seconds just to bite an apple?
And just to make your scene more impactful, because you're not in very much of the movie, you make sure that it's dripping all the way down your face.
Because he's a cartoon. That's one of my favorite things in 3 is we get to have Jack and Barbossa like next to each other through most of it. And they're so fun together.
Dude, he's on screen all of 10 seconds and he had like 15 different facial expressions. You're right.
Cartoon.
He's not a cartoon. He's a Muppet. He's like,
watch me.
He went through a whole evolution of facial expressions. Okay, so this movie is too long and drawn out in my mind. Not talking over it.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
no, it's fun. It's definitely a step down to the first one, but I like all 3 of these.
But I felt like I can't believe the commentary is already over. I felt like you and I having a discussion about it. We kind of breezed through it. I'm pretty sure we watched it on 2 times speed.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, now let's everybody get to timestamp 0 and 3. Here we go.
No, I don't think I can take a whole other 2.5 hours of drinking this. That's a bad
3
idea.
hours, sir.
I definitely can't have
10 minutes
that.
short.
Man, I kind of thought I would be a little bit less articulate by the end of this drinking this rum, so
no, you handled that pretty well.
My apologies if I've disappointed anyone. The world is not enough.
Man, no, I don't know. I like this movie quite a bit. Like I said, definitely weaker than the first one, but
well, this is another thing that where I have to compare it to the Matrix movies. I think comparing apples to apples, this is a better movie for its franchise than Matrix Reloaded is for its franchise, but I have the same thing comparatively with this that I do with Reloaded, which is Reloaded is a lot of fun. Like, I love watching that movie. It's not good, but like I really enjoy it, like as a spectacle, as a ride, and tonally and all of that. I have that too with this, but it's a better story than that is. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So when I was a kid, I had this friend that would just like tell me things, and like they would always be wrong, but he would be like,
"Oh, I know people like that."
Yeah, so like he told me he had Daredevil 2 on DVD and he watched it all the time, and I was jealous. I was like, I want to watch Daredevil 2. He told me that if you watch through the credits of this movie, it's like the Kraken, and then Jack Sparrow cuts out of the Kraken, and he cuts out and he goes, that was gross, and then like cut to black. And I was so excited. I was like, oh my god, like it wasn't as sad of an ending as I thought. And then I rewatched it, and that's not the after credits scene. I was so sad.
You get to the end of the movie and Jack Sparrow's dead, but then you get Jack's voice and it goes, "The ocean, the final frontier." We missed a super chat earlier from Robert Wild. Sorry about that, Robert. He was just like, I think you missed my super chat. Now that you know the super chat, he just wrote, and I don't know where we were in the movie when he wrote this, but he wrote, "This feels inspired by Disney's 20,000 Leagues."
Oh, it's probably during the first Kraken scene.
Probably so, yeah.
Yeah, I've never seen that. I probably should.
I haven't either. Jar Jar Ed, the scene with Norrington and Beckett was longer. David Jones greets them, and we see Beckett's map completed. You can find it on YouTube to watch. That should have been left in. That's all I wanted.
I mean, that also cheats with the rules, so maybe that's part of why.
How does it cheat?
Because he can't go on to the island because he's like, I can't go on land for another like half decade. So if he just showed up in that scene, that wouldn't make any sense.
Davy Jones himself is there. Yeah,
that would cheat.
Well, maybe it resets when somebody else gets the chest.
Maybe
that's how it
that
works.
leads to what I think is a really funny joke in the third movie, where they all meet up on this little island, and there's like a trail of buckets for Davy Jones to walk in, so he's not technically on land.
That's silly.
It's so silly, but I like it.
I don't think that works.
I think that's funny. That's silly. I was 10 when that movie came out. Give me a break.
He's really cheesing the whole system there.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah,
it's just
weird.
the ship arrives. Okay.
Yeah,
That
he
makes
can't
sense.
walk into that scene.
That's what I thought. Like, they're just talking, and then he walks in, and he's like, they're like, Jack Sparrow gave me the heart, and he walks in, and he goes, did he now?
Oh, you've got my heart.
Exactly.
Well, aren't you special?
Well, isn't that special? It's Davy Jones, the church lady.
We'll just cast Davy Jones as random characters from Saturday Night Live. I'm living in a van down by the river.
Like, I want to see Davy Jones do that, like, thing. Yeah, he's like,
In
he's got a
pirate ship
hand.
down by the ocean.
And then he trips and he falls through the table. I want to see that. That sounds amazing.
Jones World, party time excellent.
And the hammerhead guy is his guard.
And then you have Beldar Davy Jones.
No, this is perfect. I love this idea.
Okay, this is starting to hit me a little bit more.
Do you know,
right at the end here.
You're drunk when you're talking about SNL.
Yeah. Well, not with you. That comes up with us somewhat frequently.
That is true.
At
We
least
pitched
off
a whole
camera.
SNL movie.
Say again.
So that's true. We pitched a whole SNL movie off camera.
Yeah, that's not on camera anywhere, is it?
No, that was off camera. Because you were like, we need to find a way to put this in a video.
We could do SNL Movie Mania and blow our brains out on
Well,
camera.
Most of the SNL movies are on our list. At least Wayne's World and Coneheads.
Yeah.
And I think
Well, those
something...
Well, I almost said those are good movies. I don't know if Coneheads hold up at all, but I want to see it again.
Mm. Yeah, and I remember when I was a kid, everyone was like, oh, Coneheads is awesome. But I've also heard it's not great, so...
Yeah.
Like now,
People say it doesn't hold up great. I haven't seen it since I was a kid, so...
Yeah.
But I still have the action figures.
I mean, that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, my eyes are starting to
We can watch MacGruber.
I'm sorry, what?
So we can watch MacGruber and Night of the Roxburies.
Yeah, that one. I was trying to think of that one. And then we could do, like, knockoff, not quite SNL movies, like Good Burger.
Oh, no. Why?
Because I want to see what I can get away with forcing you to sit through. What am I talking about? What can I force myself to sit through? I don't want to watch that either.
Yeah. welcome to Good Burger.
I don't want to do that.
Good, whatever he says. I don't know. Who cares? Hey, Cav, remember filming on location?
Now we bring the location to you.
We gotta put the location
In him. I wish we hadn't missed it. There's a part somewhere where toward the end where somebody says with no survivors, and I was gonna like do a whole Bane thing there, and I missed it.
Oh, it's with Davy Jones, where they're like, this many people survived, and he goes, there are no survivors, and they kill them all.
Oh, there is a tiny after credit scene.
Yeah, with the dog.
He's got a bone.
He's the chief now.
What?
And then he comes back in 3. He's in all 3 of them.
Well, that sounds like a James Gunn move too.
No, that's absolutely Cosmo in like the first Guardians. The dog gets like a nice little cameo in all 3 of them.
This was really fun.
Yeah, it was.
Okay, so sometime in the hopefully not too distant future, we'll come back and do the 3rd one.
Yeah, probably in like a few months, like with this one.
Yeah, see what that insanity is like. And you know what? There's other franchises that we've started that we need to get back to at some point.
Like Terminator.
At least
but
one. We need
cares.
to get back to Terminator and finish that. Although when I say finish that, I'll watch Salvation and I'll watch Genesis. I don't want to do Dark Fate. I don't want to have to sit through that again.
Well, I've never seen the last 2. I'm nervous about going back to Salvation because I liked that movie a lot as a kid, but I also thought T3 was pretty good. So
yeah. And I mean, that's not me saying that I think either of those movies are particularly great, but Dark Fate was like offensive and I hated it and I don't want to talk about it. But if we have to do it just for the sake of completion, I'll show up, but I'm not going to promise anything.
I just want to watch it to make fun of Sarah Connor's voice.
Oh,
I'm not going to call you Carl.
It's so depressing. Everybody, thanks a lot for watching. I appreciate you being here live or after the fact. We're going to go ahead and get going. Once again, happy holidays to everybody. I am planning on popping back in once or twice next week for some kind of fun impromptu streams. I don't know if it'll be anything anybody cares about, but I'm going to come in and do something more than likely. Robert Wild put in one more $2 super chat. Appreciate you, man, and said, Merry Christmas, guys. This was fun. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And I hope everybody else did as well. And I also had a lot of fun drinking rum, which is a thing that I didn't think I liked very much. But at least when you mix it with coconut, it's wonderful.
Is your rum gone, though?
No, I did not finish this whole bottle. There was enough in here. I knew that would be a really bad idea, so I was very careful about that. But I probably drank about half of what was still here.
Well, load the rum.
Load the rum. Yeah, I was sitting here drinking gunpowder. It was it didn't taste right. It was weird.
Yeah, you should maybe go see a doctor.
Austin, thanks so much for doing these with me. I really appreciate you, man.
Yeah, no, it's the end of the year. Merry Christmas, everybody.
We'll see you later,
Happy
folks.
year.
Thanks for being here. I was Captain Logan. That was Austin. The day goes. Bye, folks.